My husband told me he lost his job, he said sadly. But hey, that might not be so bad. We can still turn things around. Just ignore that sneaky boss. We'll figure things out ourselves. I'm Sammy, by the way. The other day, I said yes, yes when the microwave beeped, and my daughter looked at me funny, saying, "Mom's talking to the microwave." It felt weird being caught off guard like that. But with gadgets like Alexa and Siri, talking to machines isn't unusual anymore. It was embarrassing because I didn't even realize I was doing it. But hey, compared to some of the really embarrassing moments I've had in the past, talking to the microwave isn't such a big deal. This happened about 15 years ago when I was working at a small but prestigious company. The company was known for its expertise in specialized tasks, like creating programs to keep computer systems safe. It had a good reputation with big companies, and its performance was solid. Back then, the internet wasn't as common as it is now, so there was a lot of potential for growth, especially in areas like security. People expected the company to keep doing well. During this time, I met Simon, who is now my husband. He was a colleague, and we eventually got married. But even before we tied the knot, I had to deal with unwanted attention from the company's president. I've always been seen as attractive, even from a young age, and I'd often got noticed by photographers for magazines when I was out and about. Unfortunately, that also meant I attracted the wrong kind of attention from some men, including the president. Because of that, I've never really liked my own looks. Even a simple good morning from me would be exaggerated by the president, who would say things like, "You're such a good girl," always greeting me with a smile. He'd brag about it to others in the company. The president was 48 years old at the time, bald, with what little hair he had left slicked down on his forehead. But he seemed content with his appearance and didn't seem bothered about fixing it. He wasn't very nice, and he treated employees he didn't like with arrogance, while being friendly to those who were useful to the company or those he found attractive. He had a bossy way about him, which created divisions among the staff. Whether it was good or bad, his behavior made me feel uncomfortable. But since he was my boss, I had to find a way to get along with him. Dealing with a man who wrongly believed I was dependent on him because I reported to him for work was tricky. I tried to avoid getting too close to him to avoid any misunderstandings. However, when I announced my marriage to my husband, the president began persistently asking me out for meals. Even though we kept our relationship at work secret, people who knew about us knew. But the fact that the president increased his invitations at this time showed he hadn't realized I was married until then. It was just things like feeling his eyes on me or hearing from others that he liked me. I initially tried to handle it gracefully, but it became a problem when his invitations got more intense. He suggested going to fancy restaurants, drinking the expensive wine he bought, and even going to bars with private rooms. He kept asking when I would go out with him alone, making things awkward and uncomfortable for me. Even after I kept saying no to his invitations, the president didn't stop. He thought I was playing hard to get and teasing him on purpose, calling me names like Little Devil. His invitations were so obvious, he just wanted to get me drunk and take advantage of me in private. It was clear it had nothing to do with work. If he suggested going to a busy park near a police station and asked me to drink water while licking salt, which I hated, I might have considered it as a work obligation, but ultimately, I wouldn't have gone. One day, I couldn't take it anymore. I told him straight out to leave me alone because it was bothering me. I had avoided saying this before because I didn't want him to realize I knew about his interest in me, which would complicate things even more. But that day, I was too stressed, and my true feelings slipped out. As expected, the president just laughed and tried to touch me. He said I knew all along and was teasing him on purpose. His touch made my skin crawl, and without thinking, I pushed him away and ran off. Originally, my husband was concerned about the president's behavior and suggested I quit my job. But I insisted on staying because I wanted to support my husband, who was the top technician in the company. He's working on a new system that could greatly improve our company's performance, and I wanted to be there to see it through. Switching companies after quitting wouldn't have made sense for me, so despite the uncomfortable situation with the president, I chose to stay. However, it was time to put an end to it. The next day, I handed in my resignation letter, addressing it to the president. I had already discussed everything with my husband the night before, and he strongly encouraged me to resign. So with determination, I confronted the president, but he didn't accept it. Instead, he tried to convince me to stay by offering higher pay and a better position. He even made weird suggestions like promoting me to be the president's wife, which made me uneasy. I told him I was married and tired of his advances, but he seemed to twist my words, implying that I secretly loved him. It was frustrating. I never saw him that way. I thought maybe he felt threatened by my husband and was trying to keep me close, but that conversation just made me more determined to leave. The president accepted my resignation, saying I shouldn't have to work as just an ordinary employee when I'm going to be the future president's wife. He took my letter and left the office. It was clear he didn't understand anything. Blaming my husband made no sense. But wait, isn't this unexpectedly lucky for both me and my husband? Just married, and now I'm out of a job. When my husband asked what was wrong, I smiled and said, "Well then, congratulations." I suggested to my husband that since he was developing a system to find suitable customers for the company, and without him, the data wouldn't be updated, maybe it was a good opportunity for us to start our own business. He was surprised at first, but then laughed and agreed, saying I was clever. We could work together again. After getting fired, my husband wasted no time. Within 30 days, just like the president said, we used our savings to start our own business. During this time, my husband reached out to the talented people from our old company, basically recruiting them to join us. The bald president, who didn't even know how to use a computer, often didn't understand the struggles we faced and would give us impossible tasks. So when my husband asked them to join our company where they'd be understood and valued, almost everyone agreed, except for the higher-ups the president favored. If I had stayed at the old company, I might have been stuck there too. Following my husband's lead, he developed a new and improved version of the system he'd been working on before. With his connections, he not only secured jobs, but also created 2 new security systems, selling them to other companies. In an industry with few competitors, companies naturally wanted the best products, so our workload quickly grew. Within 4 years, our company became the best in the business. Everyone at our company was thrilled with our success. Then, out of nowhere, the president showed up at our office one day. Reluctantly, my husband led him to his workspace, which also served as the president's office. Worried, I went along too. My husband asked the president what he wanted, and the president immediately bowed and apologized with tears in his eyes. He said he'd been watching us for the past few years and realized that I really didn't like him. He genuinely regretted his actions. The president explained that the previous company was in financial trouble, short-staffed, and making employees work long hours without paying them properly for overtime. At this point, I didn't really care about getting an apology. My husband is making more money now than he did at the old company, and he's increased the salaries of our employees. We're happy with where we are now, so the president's apology didn't matter to me. It felt like a waste of time. When my husband asked if the president had anything else to say, the president got off the sofa, sat on the floor, and begged. He pleaded for my husband to come back to the old company, saying that with him there, things would improve. But my husband calmly refused. He said that ever since he got fired, he's no longer an employee there and has a responsibility to protect the people at our own company, so he couldn't go back. The president kept pleading, even offering to step down and have his company merge with ours. But my husband said no. He explained that what the president did to me in the past was wrong and hurtful to female employees' morale. Nowadays, overworking is criticized, and actions like the president's are considered unacceptable. Back then, it might have been seen differently, but now it's clear it was wrong. He mentioned how victims were often silenced or blamed, and he couldn't forgive the president for what he did. The situation with overtime was different. Until then, it was common for companies to ignore labor laws and make employees work long hours. But as laws changed and people started seeing long hours as harmful, the president's actions could have serious consequences if reported. At first, he begged not to resign, but he eventually realized he couldn't stay as the head of the company. The president stepped down, and my husband took over, merging his company with ours. All the employees came with us, and we sorted out the unpaid overtime. Since our company was doing well, it was a relief. The president's company didn't pay much for overtime anyway, so the amount owed wasn't huge. We came out on top. When you suggested starting a business after I lost my job, I never imagined we'd grow so much that we'd surpass the president's company. I'd always believed in your abilities. Really? Or are you just trying to boost my ego? I teased my husband. No way. You caught me, he replied with a smile. As we talked about our journey as a couple, I felt genuinely relieved that everything had worked out so well. Later, it came out that someone leaked the conversations for the president's office, including his embarrassing actions towards me. This, along with the issue of unpaid overtime, made it to the local newspapers. It didn't make it to TV news because it's a small company, but more people read local papers than watch TV or read famous magazines. The president became a laughingstock in the community, and kids started playing a game called Playing President, where they pretended to flirt with a reluctant girl. It was embarrassing for him, and if he saw it, he'd probably feel even worse. He was divorced and had a teenage daughter. When she heard about the game, she seemed upset and ran home. Having a creepy father must be tough for a sensitive girl like her. It's like he's facing consequences for his own actions. Now, the president lost his company and his daughter, and he can't get a good job because he doesn't know how to use a computer. He's working as an office worker in a local factory, but he struggles with basic tasks. He's even serving tea to the female president there. It's quite a fall from his previous position. He used to order female tea servers around, but now he's the one serving tea. He probably never imagined he'd end up like this. The employees who joined our company from the president's old one find his downfall pretty amusing. They're not feeling sorry for him at all. Meanwhile, my husband and I have been blessed with 2 children. Our daughter is quite the chatterbox and loves teasing me when I get distracted during phone calls or talk to the microwave. She's cheeky but adorable. Our son, who's a year younger, seems to have a knack for computers like his dad. Even at his young age, he's already dabbling in creating small programs. So we think he has a bright future ahead of him. It would be great if he eventually took over the company, but right now, he's more interested in being a YouTuber, working for Uber Eats, or delivering pizzas. Wait, son, aren't there any other options? I often ask him. Despite the chaos of parenting, we cherish our happy family moments every day. So, how did you like our story? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more updates. See you in the next video.
Getting married? Then live with me and take care of me. That's the eldest daughter's job, right? My mother said this completely selfish thing. Up until now, I had always been burdened with household chores and childcare. It seems he plans to continue to burden me with these even after marriage. I nodded and said, okay. Okay, let's live together. And I will thoroughly make him understand all the hardships I've gone through. He better regret it. Thinking this, I smirked. My name is Emma. I am 28 years old and work at a company. I was just recently proposed to by my boyfriend of 3 years, Billy. I was very happy and felt blessed, but I put off my answer. It's not that there's anything bad about Billy. He is kind and considerate, has a sense of humor, and being with him is just fun. He is too good a person for me. Why then do I hesitate to marry such a wonderful person? There is a deep reason for this. To explain the reason, I need to trace back my memories. Memories from my childhood. I was born into a typical salaried worker's family. My father was calm and gentle. My mother was not good at housework but was an ordinary housewife. I had an older brother 2 years my senior and a younger sister 2 years my junior. It was peaceful days. Everything changed after my brother, 5 years my junior, was born. Soon after his birth, my father passed away. Fortunately, my father had a large life insurance policy, so we were not troubled by money. I remember my mother casually mentioning that the amount was enough to continue our peaceful days as long as we didn't splurge. If my mother had worked part-time then, perhaps the future would have been different. But my mother, who had always been a housewife, did not work. Furthermore, it was as if the reins were off after my father's death. And she even abandoned household chores. The house became a mess. Despite not doing household chores, my mother disliked the house being messy and chose to make her child, me, do it. At that time, my sister and brother were still young. But I had just started elementary school. Yet, my mother would say, a child who is free should do housework, and made me clean. She also pushed the care of my young brother onto me. A demanding brother, not yet 2 years old. No way could a child who had just started elementary school take care of him. I could barely go to school, but as soon as I returned home, I was immediately set to cleaning and shopping, and taking care of my brother. I also did the cooking, peeling vegetables while cutting my fingers, getting burned while stir-frying. Of course, in the beginning, nothing I made turned out well. Cleaning only made things messier, and my brother cried all the time. The food I cooked was inedible. Then my mother's scolding would immediately follow. You're useless. Why can't you do anything right? Your brother is smart and does well in his studies. And your sister has a cute face and is popular. Only you are ordinary and have no redeeming qualities. Can't you at least do household chores properly? Indeed, my brother did well in his studies even without attending cram school. My sister had a very cute face, unlike my ordinary one. But, why am I, also a daughter of the same mother, the only one burdened with housework and childcare while my siblings are exempted? Why am I the only one strictly scolded for my mistakes, when even my own mother can't do much? Now that I am an adult, I understand how abnormal the situation was at that time. But as a child, I didn't understand. Being called a failure and ugly, I felt down, thinking I was a useless child. Every time I saw my siblings being loved by my mother, I tried harder, hoping to be loved myself. I worked hard at household chores and childcare, but my mother never praised me once. When my brother passed the middle school entrance exams on his own, my mother celebrated by taking him to a fancy restaurant. But the only ones who went were my brother and sister. My brother, not yet in elementary school, and I were left at home. Useless and a nuisance, stay home, my mother told us. And I cried at home eating bread while taking care of my brother. When my sister was scouted as a model, my mother was over the moon, hugging my sister and saying, "That's my daughter." Watching this, I was glared at irrationally. "Are you really my daughter?" she said to me. My mother adored my brother and sister. She denied the existence of me and my brother, denied us and pushed household chores and childcare onto us. If something good happened, it was because of my mother. If something bad happened, it was my fault. I was allowed to attend school, but I was never allowed to participate in school events like field trips. "You're supposed to do the housework, aren't you? You can't just slack off." That's what she said. I had no happy childhood memories. No memories of playing with friends after school. I grew up in such an environment, and before I knew it, I had been made to do household chores until I graduated high school. My brother and sister always seemed apologetic towards me. Of course, they tried to help. But when my siblings offered to help, my mother would scream at them furiously. It's because you're incompetent that you're bothering your siblings. Your brother is studying to enter a prestigious company. Your sister is going to be a celebrity in the future. Don't interfere. Whenever we tried to do something, my mother would blame me. Understanding this, my siblings eventually chose to say nothing. One night, as we lay sleeping, my sister, crying next to me, said, "Sorry, big sister." I hugged her tightly, and we both cried. We were just kids, really just kids. Even when I reached the age to understand the abnormality of my parents, I continued to work hard on household chores for my precious siblings. I was provided with food and shelter and was able to attend school. I thought if I endured, that was enough, and so I endured day after day. As time passed, my brother joined a top company as my mother wished and moved out. He seems to be sending money home from his salary every month. And my mother's lifestyle has improved. She frequently visits hair salons and spas and has increased her collection of brand name items. But she still does not do any household chores. I got a job after high school. Unable to attend cram school due to all the household chores, I didn't have the brains like my brother to go to university and chose a safe path. It would have been nice if I could have lived alone then, but leaving my sister, still in high school, and my brother, in middle school, was not an option. By that time, my skills in household chores had improved significantly, and I rarely made mistakes. My mother scolded me less, but she still lashed out at me whenever something displeased her. I was finally dressing up to go out, but it started raining and I couldn't. It's because Emma had a gloomy face. Such irrational anger directed at me hasn't changed, then or now. But from that time on, something inside me began to whisper, "Don't think nothing will change. Don't think I'll always be a submissive child who obeys her parents." No matter what was said, I wasn't hurt anymore, and I glared back at my mother, sometimes talking back. My mother is getting older and weaker. On the other hand, I am growing and becoming stronger. Does she think she can be the queen forever? When I glare, my mother seems to quiet down somewhat. But she still does not do any household chores. I continued to do them because my sister and brother would be troubled otherwise. Then my sister got a job and moved out. My brother, although not as adored as my brother or sister, had also graduated from university and gotten a job. When my brother was 22, I was already 27. By then, I was already dating Billy. I had briefly explained my family situation to him. After all, I couldn't go out late at night because I had to prepare dinner. "You really care about your family," Billy would say, but that wasn't it. Yes, I was working hard for my siblings, but I didn't want to be lumped together with the word family. Still, I hesitated to talk about my mother's true nature. After all, if I told him about such an intense mother, Billy might leave me. Call me a coward if you will. For me, who was not loved by my mother, Billy's presence, who loves me, is irreplaceable. I don't want to lose him, I want to be with him forever. I want to be in a normal relationship where we love and are loved. Yet, when he proposed, I hesitated. What is there to hesitate about? That's what I think to myself. My siblings have already moved out. My brother got married last year and started a family. My brother is working hard, saving money. He says he'll move out once he's saved a certain amount, and that's supposed to be soon. If that's the case, I could leave when my brother does. But thinking about that suddenly makes me feel sick. My head hurts. My stomach hurts. I feel nauseous. Ah, I see, I don't want to leave home. I have to stay with my mother. Because I'm a failure, a misfit, unloved by my mother. I have to do the household chores to finally be recognized by my mother. I shouldn't get married. I convinced myself and closed my eyes. All that spread before me was darkness. Darkness that had been spreading since I was a child. I had given up, thinking the darkness would continue. But that's not true. Suddenly, light shone through. I opened my eyes. Before me was Billy, with a gentle smile. Billy? Who said Emma shouldn't get married? Who said you can't be happy? There's no such rule, right? At least, I'll show you happiness. Huh? I will make Emma happy. Trust me, it's okay. But I'm a selfish person, so I'll definitely accomplish what I've said. I'll definitely make you happy. So, please marry me. Talking about my mother was a whim. I wanted to tell him how worthless I was and that I wasn't worthy of him. But Billy's response was unexpectedly gentle. Overwhelmed by his kind gaze, I clung to him and cried. Crying and crying, just crying. Thank you. Please take care of me, I said. That moment, my vision cleared and it became dazzlingly bright. I wanted to marry Billy. I wanted to end my current life. The time of looking down was over. From now on, I decided to look forward. With that resolution, I found myself standing in front of my mother. What? Without taking her eyes off the TV and reaching for a snack with a drink in her hand, my mother asked. Hurry up and make some snacks. That's about all you can do. Mom, I'm getting married. Huh? It was then that my mother finally looked at me. How many days had it been since my mother really looked at me? My mother, who always commanded something, spoke without looking at me. Sitting down, she looked up at me. I, standing, looked down at her as she frowned. Getting married? What about the house? Are you abandoning your brother? I just talked to him, and he said he's moving out when I get married. I see. My mother's expression didn't change as she responded indifferently. So, we're living together. Huh? Getting married? Then live with me and take care of me. That's the eldest daughter's job, right? Saying something utterly selfish. My mother turned her gaze back to the TV as if there was no more to discuss. Not even a single word of congratulations, even though her daughter was getting married. Watching my mother's attitude, various emotions surged within me. And before I knew it, my mouth had automatically said, okay. Okay, let's live together. My mother, who had lived a selfish and self-centered life, had kicked my life around. If she wants to live together, fine. But don't think you can live as carefreely as before, right? I watched my mother drinking leisurely and smirked. After that, Billy and I got married. We registered our marriage and took a commemorative photo. We didn't have a ceremony because neither of us wanted one. After registering, Billy immediately moved into our house. Yes, the beginning of our living together. I'm telling you first, don't ever hesitate with my mother. I had said it many times beforehand, but I emphasized it again, and Billy nodded with a smile. Yeah, don't worry. After all, it was your mother who wanted to live together. I'll do as I please. Yeah. Emma, you too, you're my wife now. and this is your home. Do as you like, okay? Saying so, my husband smirked. I nodded and smirked as well. Well, shall we begin? I thought to myself, rolling up my sleeves, unknown to my mother. Day 1 of living together. What's this? Why isn't my breakfast ready? Emma, are you slacking off? Ah, good morning, Mother. We're both leaving soon, so please prepare your own breakfast. Let's go, Emma. Right. Huh? Wait, just a moment. Not preparing my mother's breakfast, something that hadn't happened in decades. My mother was confused by the unusual situation, and I felt somewhat uneasy. It might be confusing at first to stop a habit. But you'll get used to it gradually. I nodded at my husband's words. My mother's confused face earlier was kind of funny. After finishing work and returning home, the house being messy was usual. I glanced at it and went to my room to change and then to the living room. Emma, what was that this morning? You can't even prepare breakfast for your own mother? You really are incompetent. Huh? Can't prepare breakfast? Mom, aren't you the incompetent one? What? My mother probably didn't expect me to talk back. Leaving my stunned mother alone, I briskly cleaned up the messy kitchen and started preparing dinner. When I finished, I carried the food to my room. Huh? Wait, where's my dinner? There isn't any. No. Don't get carried away just because you got married. Who do you think allowed you to grow up to be like this? Whose? Thanks to the inheritance left by Dad, right? What? What? You insolent. I'm home. Just as my mother tried to say something, my husband came home. Welcome back. Dinner's ready. Really? But I'm sweaty, so can I take a bath first? Sure, that's ready too. Huh? Wait a minute, I should go first. Ah, Mother, I'll be taking the bath first. No, wait just a. Ignoring my mother's protest, my husband headed straight to the bath. I returned to my room to lay out dinner. Then my mother started banging on the door. Ignoring her, I prepared and left before my husband came out of the bath, encountering my mother standing there imposingly. What do you mean by this? What do you mean? You don't prepare my meals, you don't clean the house, you let your husband bathe first. What's the point of living together then? That's normal. I'm married now, so I only take care of my husband. I'm no longer obligated to take care of Mom. Are you a demon? Don't you say that. What? I glared back at my mother, who kept blaming me as the bad one, and she lost her words. What about you, who dumped all the housework on a young Emma and goofed around? Aren't you a demon then? I managed to grow up safely thanks to the inheritance Dad left us. We could live off that money. But Mom, you did nothing. Do you think you raised me? Of course. How? You let me do all the housework while you goofed around. You doted only on my brother and sister and ignored me and my brother. You never once attended a school meeting. You never showed any interest in my future, just told me to do the housework. How is that raising? That's, well, sorry, but I don't feel grateful at all. So, from now on, I won't take care of Mom. After declaring that, I walked past my mother. She stood there, unable to say anything. The next day. Day 2 of living together. Emma. Why aren't my clothes washed? Because I didn't do it, so of course they're not washed. But you were running the washing machine yesterday. I did ours, mine and Billy's. Do mine too, I'm your mother. This happens right after I return from work, exhausted, and she's been playing all day. You have free time, so you should do the laundry yourself. I'm training you. Thanks for that. I'm already well trained, so no more is needed from now on. You insolent. Mother, don't you even know how to wash? My husband, who had been listening to our conversation, suddenly spoke up to my flustered mother. Huh? I know how to do that much. If you don't know, I can teach you. Come on, follow me. I'm telling you I know how. Do you really know? First, you open the lid, right? Then you put in the detergent and fabric softener here. I'm telling you, I know. Then you choose the cycle and press this button here. It's turned into a complete joke or treating her like a child. My mother was taken aback by his ignoring all her objections. And my husband kept talking with a grin. Go ahead, try it. I won't do it. That's Emma's job. Just do it. Eek. Suddenly, my husband's tone changed. The smile disappeared from his face, showing anger. Seeing that, my mother let out a small scream. You made a young elementary school Emma do all that, right? Then it should be easy for an adult like you. Just do it. Yes. Intimidated by his forcefulness, my mother ended up doing the laundry herself. It was indeed a scene we hadn't seen in decades. By the way, the amount of detergent my husband had previously put in was quite excessive. And suds were leaking from the washing machine, causing my mother to scream. But we, locked in our room, completely ignored it. The Spartan treatment for my mother continued. What? Cooking? Just do it yourself. I don't care what you want to eat. The old me, who used to do everything my mother said, had become quite strong as a reaction to breaking free from her control. My mother was lost for words at my retorts. Mother, do the cleaning yourself. What is this, underwear? How can you just leave it lying around? Wow, Mother, you've been playing so much yet your wrinkles are increasing day by day. Didn't you play outside too much instead of making Emma do all the housework? Are you even applying sunscreen? Before calling Emma incompetent, you should reflect on your own inability to manage yourself. What is this dish? Is it even edible? Emma's cooking is really delicious. You criticize others but can't see your own flaws. My husband showered my mother with his pointed words. Poke, poke, poke. It was like sitting on a bed of needles. I chuckled wryly, remembering how my mother used to nag me like that every day. And then, a month into our living together passed. Finally, my mother snapped, shouting, I've had enough. I endured for over 10 years. But her patience is just too lacking. Enough. I've had it. You two as a couple are too much. I can't stand it anymore. Get out right now. Okay, we'll leave. Huh? She probably didn't expect us to agree so readily. Maybe she thought we would beg if she suddenly kicked us out. But that wasn't going to happen. My husband and I quickly packed our bags and headed for the door. Huh? Wait, you're leaving now. What about your things? Oh, this is everything. Everything. We've placed everything else in our new home, so it's fine. What? Yes, my husband and I had actually rented an apartment separate from my family home. We lived at home with the bare minimum, ready to leave at any moment. And now, we were waiting for the get-out command. Less than an hour after being told to leave, my husband and I were out the door. Wait. What will become of me now? I don't know. Didn't you say I should leave, Mom? Well, I've already done more than enough taking care of you, Mom. You never once appreciated it. You always favored my brother and sister and looked down on me. I never felt any love from you. If you tell me to leave, of course I'll gladly go. Anyway, I don't plan to do anything from now on. It seems like you always intended to exploit me. But what's the point of me staying with you if I do nothing? My mother couldn't say anything to my words. See, you're at a loss for words now, which means to you, I was nothing more than a housekeeper. I won't let you interfere with my life anymore. But what about the living expenses? We had been paying for utilities and such while living together. If that stops, it means Mom will have to pay on her own. I don't care about that. Why not pay with Dad's inheritance like before? There's hardly any of that left. You all spent it. Lies. Mom, I know you've been spending a lot on yourself. That's why you forced me to cook budget meals. And I haven't forgotten wearing tattered clothes. Because you rarely bought me any new ones. That's. You've always done whatever you wanted. Maybe it's time you struggled a bit. Saying that, I turned my back on my mother. Wait. Goodbye, Mom. The words I always wanted to say. The words I could never say. I felt relief that I finally could. I glanced down once, then looked up. My husband was waiting for me with a smile. Without looking back, I ran to my husband, took his hand. And we left my childhood home behind. Afterwards, after squandering my father's inheritance and struggling financially, my mother first contacted my brother. She suggested living together, but he refused, saying, I can't live with a mother who tries to exploit her children. My current family is what's important to me. Upon learning that the remittances he had been sending were spent on my mother's luxury purchases, my brother declared he would stop them. And apparently, my mother screamed. Then she called my sister, but my sister bluntly cut her off, saying, Live with Mom? No way, absolutely not. Living with a mother who does nothing around the house? Impossible. I'm busy, so I'm hanging up. Later, my sister called me. Mom has always exploited you and had fun, what now? I'm sorry for always pushing her onto you, she said. Although she was loved by my mother, my sister couldn't forgive her treatment of me. Let's cut ties with Mom, you should too. She suggested, ending the call. My brother apparently also received a call from her, screaming, Take care of me, but he hung up without a word and blocked her number. Hearing that, I laughed. In the end, our mother's twisted love was not understood by any of her children. And she was abandoned. My siblings said they were sorry they couldn't do anything, but we were just kids. It's understandable that we didn't have the capacity. Later, my mother had to sell the family home. Apparently, she ran out of money and couldn't sustain her lifestyle. But it was an old house and didn't sell for much. Now she's crying about having to start working part-time, late in life. She's been crying to each of us kids in turn, but none of us are paying attention. After all the freedom she took, it's time for her to experience some hardship. Having learned from my mother's example, I vowed not to let my children suffer. I will give them plenty of love without discrimination. As I stroke my belly, carrying a new life that will soon be born, I think about this. If you don't want to work, then get out of this house. Even though I finally got a job offer. Having a freeloader like you around is demotivating and a nuisance. My sister Nicole, raising her voice in anger, blames me because she didn't like the dinner I made. So, that's why I. Cutting off my words, Nicole seeks help from our mother. Mom, say something. How long do you plan to keep this parasite in our house? This house is ours, right? Is it okay if our life gets harder because of someone like her? Well, now that Nicole has got a job, maybe it's time for the parasite to leave? It would be pitiful if she bothers Nicole. Ashley, you're old enough, so just leave the house. Hearing Nicole's words, our mother immediately takes her side. Empowered by having our mother on her side, Nicole goes even further. See, even Mom agrees, just get out. Don't ever come back. You're not part of the family anyway. Despite all the sacrifices I've made for the family. Realizing that they never cared makes me incredibly sad. Feeling that staying here is just foolish, I quietly make up my mind. All right, I'll leave. And I'll never involve myself with you, Mom, or Nicole again. That's fine with you both, right? Hearing my decision, Nicole and our mother point at me and laughingly say, "Of course, that's perfect. With one less parasite, we'll save on living expenses. Now pack your things and leave." That's right. I have Nicole, I don't need a parasite like you. Well, I'll leave tomorrow, but can I take all my belongings? Obviously. Make sure you take everything and never come back. Having a freeloader like you related to me is a stain on my life. Take all your belongings and get out. Understood. Then I'll take everything that's mine. As if you have anything of value, pretending to be strong. While Nicole and our mother mock me, they reach for the food I made again. I leave them to it and return to my room. My name is Ashley, and I am 29 and single this year. I live at home with my mother, her new husband Jason, and my sister Nicole. Before she remarried, our mother was kind to me too, but after Nicole was born, she doted on her and didn't care much for me. Ashley, you're the older sister, so give in to Nicole. But this is something I bought with my own allowance. Nicole wants it. Don't be so selfish. Our mother takes the clothes I bought and gives them to Nicole. Yay! I really wanted this dress. Nicole receives it from our mother with a smile as if it's the most natural thing in the world. Ashley, buy yourself some new clothes with this. Feeling down after having my clothes taken, Jason discreetly hands me some money so the others won't notice. Is that okay? I'm sorry I can't protect you more. Thank you, Dad. Jason is kind and tries to treat Nicole and me equally. But he can't often defend me openly in front of my strong-willed mother. However, having him there made me feel supported, the only solace I had. Thanks to him, I was able to go to college and graduate successfully. I'm going to live near the company once I start working. It takes too much time to commute from home. What are you saying? After we paid for your college, you're going to leave without repaying that favor? I won't allow you to live alone until you've repaid your debt to us. But if it takes 2 hours to commute to the company, I need to live closer. Wow, I'm appalled. You just want to make life easier for yourself by living away from your family. Anyway, I absolutely won't allow you to live alone. I had planned to leave home once I got a job. But faced with our mother's fierce opposition, I was forced to continue living miserably at home. Then, 6 years later. What? Dad has? Why so suddenly? He suddenly collapsed at work and didn't make it to the hospital in time. When Nicole started university, Jason suddenly passed away due to a sudden illness. What? I just started university. What are we going to do about tuition and other expenses? Our mother and Nicole only worry about their own future, leaving all the funeral preparations to me. Since you're not blood related to Dad, you shouldn't feel sad, right? You've been doing nothing but mooching off us at home, so at least be useful now. You're right, Mom. She's just a freeloader who lazes around at home even though she graduated from university. Dad just wasted his money on her tuition. Even during the wake, when it's just family, they continue to hurl abuse at me. Wanting to honor Jason's memory, I simply endure their insults. A few days later, after the funeral, we sort through the inheritance. Our mother and Nicole find a bank book in Jason's name and are delighted. Dad left us so much money, lucky me. Now I can buy the designer bag I wanted. That's great. Now we don't have to worry about Nicole's tuition or living expenses for a while. Maybe I'll buy some dresses too. Ah, of course, you don't get a share, Nicole. All the money Dad left is mine because I'm his real blood. You're not his real child, so you have no right to it. I never counted on inheriting anything from my stepfather. But Nicole still lashes out at me. I never intended to take anything in the first place. But since Dad left it, I just want it to be treated with care. Shut up. I don't want someone like you, who doesn't work and lives at home like a parasite, to worry about me. But I am working, you know. I've explained this many times. What? You say you're working while you're home all day? You're just delusional because you're an unmarried woman who can't make money and can't leave home, right? I definitely don't want to end up like you. No matter how often I explain my situation to Nicole, she never listens. However, I hope that once she starts job hunting, she might understand what my work entails. Thinking this, I, as an older sister, choose to overlook Nicole's harsh words. 2 years after our father's death, Nicole, now a junior in college, had finally started her job hunt. But perhaps because it's a tough process, she seemed more irritable than before. One evening, as we were all eating dinner, Nicole sighed heavily and said, "Ugh, I'm working so hard on job hunting and it's so exhausting too. Come home to see a freeloader lounging around the house. Isn't it unbearable?" A freeloader? Who are you talking about? You, obviously. You don't even go outside, just lazing around the house. It's so annoying. I retorted to Nicole's accusation. Enough already. How many times do I have to tell you? I was working today, too. What? When I came back, you were leisurely reading a book on the couch. You call that work? That was a book related to my work. I've explained what I do to you many times. A job where you just stay home all day, fiddling on the computer or reading books, that's not a real job. Nowadays, even fresh graduates have to go to the office. Maybe the career you're aiming for requires going into the office. But there are jobs that can be done from home if you look. You're really annoying. I'm tired from job hunting. I don't want to hear a freeloader's ramblings. Nicole slammed the living room door and retreated to her room. Though I understood that job hunting was stressful, her increasing attacks on me were wearing me down. I sighed softly and looked over at our mother, who continued eating quietly. Mom. Nicole won't listen to me at all. Can you please explain to her about my work? Maybe later. She's just stressed from job hunting. That doesn't mean she can act like this every day. I'm getting stressed too. Don't say that. Ashley, you're the older sister, so try to be more considerate of Nicole. Even when I asked our mother to persuade Nicole, she only pressured me to endure. Doubting the attitudes of our mother and Nicole, I continued to do what I could for my family. Then, one day, as I was bringing dinner to the table, Nicole screamed shrilly. "What is this meal? You're home all day and still make shortcuts in cooking. This week has been busy with work. It's okay to cut corners when I'm busy. If you have a complaint, why don't you cook for yourself? Ha, work? Your job, which can't even earn money, must be about managing the household perfectly, right? All you do every day is play on the computer or read books. That's why. I'm telling you, I am working. Just listen to what I'm saying for once." Despite my desperate responses, my words never reached Nicole. Glancing sideways at our mother, she just turned away, pretending not to notice. "If you don't want to work, then get out of this house." Even though I finally got a job offer, having a freeloader like you around is demotivating and a nuisance. So, that's why Cutting off my words, Nicole seeks help from our mother. "Mom, say something. How long do you plan to keep this parasite in our house? This house is ours, right? Is it okay if our life gets harder because of someone like her?" Well, now that Nicole has got a job, maybe it's time for the parasite to leave? It would be pitiful if she bothers Nicole. "Ashley, you're old enough, so just leave the house." Hearing Nicole's words, our mother immediately takes her side. Empowered by having our mother on her side, Nicole goes even further. "See, even Mom agrees, just get out. Don't ever come back. You're not part of the family anyway." Despite all the sacrifices I've made for the family, realizing that they never cared makes me incredibly sad. Feeling that staying here is just foolish, I quietly make up my mind. All right, I'll leave. And I'll never involve myself with you, Mom, or Nicole again. That's fine with you both, right? Hearing my decision, Nicole and our mother point at me and laughingly say, "Of course, that's perfect. With one less parasite, we'll save on living expenses. Now pack your things and leave." That's right. I have Nicole, I don't need a parasite like you. Well, I'll leave tomorrow, but can I take all my belongings? Obviously. Make sure you take everything and never come back. Having a freeloader like you related to me is a stain on my life. Take all your belongings and get out. Understood. Then I'll take everything that's mine. As if you have anything of value, pretending to be strong. Nicole and our mother mock me as they reach for the food I made again. I leave them to it and return to my room. Later, I hurriedly searched for a new place to live and managed to find an apartment available for immediate move-in. As I was moving in, my phone rang. Picking up, I heard a loud voice on the other end. "Why did you take all the furniture and appliances? The house is empty because you took everything. Bring back everything you took right now." "What are you talking about?" "Nicole, you were the one who said I should take all my belongings. So, I only took the things I bought with my own money. I didn't steal anything that belonged to you or Mom." "What? What are you talking about, Nicole? Didn't Mom buy the furniture and appliances with Dad's inheritance? After the first anniversary of Dad's death, she replaced everything that was old." "No, that's not true. I bought those furniture and appliances with my own money. Most of Dad's inheritance was used to pay off Mom's debts." I continued to explain calmly to Nicole. "What? There's nothing left. Then, what about our living expenses until now?" Nicole, unable to grasp the situation, muttered in a faint voice. "If you're curious, why don't you ask Mom?" As I suggested this, Nicole hastily turned to our mother nearby. "What does this mean, Mom?" Well. Hearing our mother's flustered voice, I sighed and spoke the truth. "I was paying for everything, Nicole. The living expenses and your tuition fees, all of it. I've explained many times that I earn a decent salary working from home as a software engineer." "No way. You're lying. You were just playing on the computer every day. How can you make money from that? You must have been using Dad's inheritance, right? And you squandered it?" Nicole refused to believe my story and even started accusing me falsely. I pressed on with the reality. I earned over $5,000 a month as a freelance software engineer by studying hard on my own. More than half of that I put into our household expenses. But still, it's unbelievable that it would run out so quickly. The inheritance wasn't enough, and I covered the rest. And Mom continued to splurge, so there's no money left now. What? Then what about my tuition fees? If we can't pay, I won't be able to graduate from university. Didn't you have money left too? Why don't you use that? There's nothing left. It all went quickly because I bought department store cosmetics and brand items. That's why I told you to use it wisely. Nicole, what will happen if you can't graduate? We were counting on your salary. Mom, that's your problem. What will happen to me if I can't graduate? What? I don't know anything about that. As they blamed each other, I could hear Nicole and our mother shouting through the phone. Both seemed to finally understand their predicament, their voices tinged with panic. "Well, if you can't pay the tuition, you'll have to drop out of university. And the job offer you received based on your expected graduation might even be revoked. That's terrible. Please, big sister, come back home. We're family, aren't we? If not, at least pay my tuition fees. Yes, if Ashley comes back, everything will be fine. Please, Ashley, you're our only hope. Let's live together as a family of 3, like before. After you drove me out and repeatedly called me a parasite. It's ridiculous to say we're family now. It's too late for that." With Nicole and our mother begging tearfully, I firmly ended the call and blocked their numbers. Later, Nicole and our mother, having lost the financial support I provided, failed to pay the rent for the house and were evicted. Unable to pay her tuition, Nicole was inevitably dismissed from the university, and her job offer was revoked as a result. Forced to drop out, Nicole managed to scrape by with multiple part-time jobs. Our mother, having rarely worked before, started as a cashier at a supermarket, but struggled with the unfamiliar work, leading to frequent arguments with Nicole over stress. As for me, I was finally living alone, enjoying the freedom and financial savings from not having to support the household. I decided to pursue my interests and walk my own path toward happiness. "You're a killer." Screaming that, my mother-in-law attacked me, instinctively dodging. She then violently struck the door of the hospital room. This is a hospital, and I had just been called here by my mother-in-law because my husband was hospitalized after a traffic accident and needed me to rush over. What does this behavior mean? What on earth happened? What do you mean by this? I shouted that, keeping my distance from her. You pushed my son towards the road, didn't you? Stunned by her accusation, I clenched my stomach and vehemently denied it. I did nothing of the sort. Who told you such nonsense? At my words, my mother-in-law smirked. Just as I was pondering why, a voice came from behind me. It was me. Talking about nonsense after pushing someone, how can you even say that? It was my husband, speaking from the bed. His legs were bandaged. And he looked at me with utter contempt. My name is Heather, a 27-year-old housewife. Before getting married, I worked as an office clerk in a small company. And I met Nick through a friend's introduction. Nick worked in a company in the same industry, and we hit it off talking about work. After a while, Nick made his move and we got married. And I quit my job to move closer to him. Since Nick was living with his parents, we needed to find a new place for the two of us. However, we couldn't find a satisfying apartment, and soon after the marriage, Nick said, I didn't want to say this so soon, but I was hoping we could live with my mother, who is ill, at my parents' house. Of course, if we could find a great place, that would be best. But she's not forcing us, she'd be happy if we could stay. So please, this is tough, but okay, right? Seeing this, I realized Nick had always intended to bring me to live with his mother. Thinking he was considering my feelings, he didn't force cohabitation immediately. I was anxious about living with my mother-in-law right after getting married. However, when we went to his parents' house to announce our marriage, I got the impression that she was a kind and cheerful person. Moreover, their house had a great location and was impressive. I told Nick, I understand. But I still don't know much about your mother or the house. So please, give me plenty of advice on housework and chores at the beginning. Nick replied with a smile, of course. We promised to work together. I agreed to the cohabitation. And my mother-in-law said warmly after we started living together, don't be so tense, Heather. For me, you are like a daughter. Just relax. Since she wasn't in good health, I mostly took care of the housework. Their house was large and cleaning was a chore. But I worked hard to keep it clean every day. I also cooked eagerly for my mother-in-law, and she seemed to enjoy every meal, always saying, the food Heather makes is delicious. I am so happy to have you as my daughter-in-law. This gradually eased my tension. But then something happened that made me anxious about living with my mother-in-law. One day, as usual, I served dinner and she commented after tasting it, the flavor is a bit strong today. It was meat and potatoes. And I hadn't changed the seasoning. Puzzled, I apologized. I'm sorry, perhaps I added too much salt today. She replied, don't worry. It's tasty. Relieved, I thought maybe fatigue was affecting my cooking, as I had read somewhere that tiredness can make flavors stronger. Maybe I'm just tired. I'll go to sleep early today, I muttered to myself and went to bed early. However, from that day on, every time I served a meal, she would become grumpy, which had never happened before. Meal times became distressing, and I started to feel anxious. A few days later, she burst out, eating such strong flavored food will make me sick. Are you trying to shorten my life? I had never been scolded so harshly as an adult, and my mind went blank. I stuttered an apology. I always cook the same way. Sorry, I'll make it lighter. These days continued almost daily. At that time, I felt that since I was living there at her grace, I had to listen to her or I might be kicked out. Without a next house lined up, it would be a disaster, so I resolved to save up for moving funds and decided to study cooking for my own benefit. I started researching online, bought books on low-salt cooking, and learned to make meals with less salt and balanced nutrition, considering my mother-in-law's health. But despite my efforts, her comments became harsher. "A woman who can only cook like this is worthless. You are disqualified as a bride." From then on, my mother-in-law seemed to check on my actions more and more. After I cleaned the floor, she would rub it with her finger and say, "The cleanliness is about 60 points. It's mediocre. Maybe you should clean it again." Even when going to the store or a supermarket, she would start fretting. "Don't leave me alone. Planning to run away, aren't you?" Every time I went out, I reassured her I would never run away. "Please calm down." However, my persuasion was in vain for a while, and I couldn't earn my mother-in-law's trust. She began watching me around the clock. Because of this, I had absolutely no time or freedom for myself. However, this all abruptly came to an end a few months later. One day, my mother-in-law said with a smile, "Heather, I've decided I won't comment on your actions anymore. It makes both of us uncomfortable and awkward." I was bewildered and responded, "Really? I'm glad to have earned your trust." Although I was relieved, I couldn't genuinely be happy because of her previous intense scrutiny. I suspected she might be monitoring me in some other way. Sure enough, my intuition was spot on. After some investigation, I discovered that unbeknownst to me, my mother-in-law had placed a GPS tracker on me. It was frightening to realize that someone could secretly track you with a GPS in this day and age. I had reached my limit. But getting angry and seizing her phone was the only way to deactivate the GPS. Hoping my husband would see the GPS tracking as over the line, I consulted him after my mother-in-law went to sleep. "Nick, while you're at work, your mom watches my every move all day. Even though I used to be praised for my housework, recently I've been scored on my cleaning and cooking. And sometimes she verbally abuses me. I've been trying just as hard as before. And now with the GPS tracking me all day, I really can't rest and it's tough." However, to my dismay, my husband defended his mother, saying, "Maybe she's doing it to educate you because your housework is sloppy. You need to be aware of your own shortcomings." I was stunned and nearly lost my temper. Since my mother-in-law was sleeping in the bedroom, I couldn't retaliate or argue. I realized there was no one on my side in this house. The only people I could confide in were friends from my hometown, with whom I occasionally exchanged messages to vent my stress. My parents were too busy, and my childhood home was far away, so I couldn't call for help. From that day, the conversations between my husband and me dwindled. One day, before going to work, my husband mentioned offhandedly, "Work's going to be busy. I'm up for a promotion, so I won't be home for a while." With Nick not coming home for a while, it would just be my mother-in-law and me. Honestly, living with her and enduring her constant surveillance and snide remarks felt daunting. Yet, despite saying that, I couldn't leave my ailing mother-in-law alone when she needed assistance. I resolved to endure until my husband returned. If my mother-in-law's nastiness didn't stop, I'd have a serious talk with him when he came back about possibly leaving. With these thoughts in mind, the next day, my mother-in-law asked me to go shopping. "Heather, could you go to the supermarket in the next town over? They have a sale on toilet paper today." She pointed it out on the map, insisting it was the only place selling the brand she preferred, which had come up in conversations with neighbors. The supermarket she mentioned was an hour's walk away. and we usually bought our toilet paper at a nearby store at a similar price. Puzzled, I hesitated to respond, prompting her to urge, "What's the matter? It'll sell out, so hurry up. We can't miss today's deal. Please, do this for me," as she turned on the TV. I sighed quietly, ensuring my mother-in-law didn't notice. Saying out loud that I didn't want to go that far for toilet paper would only aggravate her more. While the idea of going to the supermarket felt bothersome, the thought of being away from her for a longer time provided some relief. Trying to ease the tension, I laughed and said, "It's a supermarket I've never been to, and I'm bad with directions. I'll try to find it using the map," and left the house. Sigh, what am I even doing every day? As I was heading home after successfully completing the shopping, I muttered to myself when suddenly, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. "You're taking too long shopping." Expecting to be scolded, I nervously answered the phone. However, contrary to my expectations, my mother-in-law urgently said, "Nick has been in an accident and taken to the hospital. His condition is critical. So please come right away." I was completely taken aback by the sudden news and struggled to process everything. "Nick's hospitalized," I blurted out. I had many questions, but my mother-in-law hung up abruptly, leaving me increasingly anxious. All I knew was that Nick had been seriously injured, to the extent that hospitalization was necessary. Could it be life-threatening? Or was he unable to communicate while bedridden? Lost in thought, I was hardly present as I made my way to the hospital. Minutes later, I hesitantly opened the door to Nick's hospital room, praying he was all right. Seeing him lying on the bed, I rushed over, asking, "Nick, are you okay?" He seemed conscious, but stubbornly avoided eye contact. As I was puzzled by his behavior, my mother-in-law suddenly stood up and shouted, "Nick has a serious leg fracture because of the accident. It's your fault, isn't it? What are you going to do about this?" "What? Me?" With no recollection of the incident, all I could do was stand there dumbfounded. Then, Nick looked at me and sneered, "Don't play dumb. You pushed me while I was out working, and I got hit by a motorcycle because of it." Even the victim himself was blaming me. I didn't do such a thing. Despite my desperate denials, my mother-in-law yelled, "Enough. I've told you many times you're the culprit. Just admit it. What you're doing is as bad as murder. So pay for the medical bills and the emotional distress, and let's get divorced, you horrible woman." Unable to bear being falsely accused, I protested. "Wait. There's no way I did anything. I wasn't even there. And I don't know Nick's work schedule or his days off." I refused to accept the blame for something I hadn't done. At that moment, the police and a woman entered the hospital room. The police greeted my husband, Nick, and then went to speak with the attending physician. The woman who remained looked at me, her expression one of sudden realization, and said, "Ah. Thank you so much for earlier. I apologize for barging in suddenly. I am Jane, and I actually supervise your husband at work. I came to visit and hear about what happened." She introduced herself politely. Nick, wide-eyed, exclaimed, "What? You know each other?" I told Nick, yes, sort of, and looked at Jane. That morning, I had noticed something my husband had forgotten. This is important. I need to deliver it right now. What Nick had forgotten was the key to a company car. He occasionally brought it home, saying it was for driving the car at work. I tried calling him immediately, but couldn't reach him. So I decided to go to his office to deliver it directly. When I hurriedly delivered the key to the office, the woman who handled it was Jane. Unaware of everything, Nick pointed at me and told Jane, "Senior, you should stay away from this one. She's really the worst kind of terrible person." Jane, unfazed, asked Nick, "Why do you think so?" Nick then became frantic, saying, "Because I got seriously injured, and it's all her fault. I was out on a field visit when she suddenly pushed me from behind, causing me to stumble into the road and ultimately get hit by a motorcycle." Jane responded, "I see, that's unfortunate." Then Nick added, "Right? It was around noon, and I was looking up where to eat lunch. But then this happened, just terrible," and began to seek sympathy from Jane. However, Jane's expression suddenly hardened, and she glared at Nick. "That's strange. Your wife was at our workplace at that time. She had come to deliver the company car key you forgot. That story doesn't add up." Jane continued sternly, "Moreover, isn't this key a duplicate you made? All keys for the company cars are accounted for. There are no records of this car having two keys. This key shouldn't even exist. So why was it at your house?" Nick's face turned pale, and he stammered, "Huh? Maybe. I hit my head in the accident, so my memory might be mixed up. I really don't remember anything about the key. Could you maybe ask someone from General Affairs instead?" he said, nervously looking at Jane. Jane firmly replied, "I won't let you say you don't remember. Discovering a duplicated key is a serious issue for the company. It's not like we came to talk to you without investigating. We already have information from Amy in General Affairs." Hearing this, Nick suddenly looked shocked and blurted out, "Please stop, my wife is here. I admit I made the duplicate." Feeling suspicious, I requested, "Could you please tell me more about this?" "Thank you." Jane agreed. "I understand. It might be painful for you. But I think it's a sin to hide the truth from those who should hear it. Actually, your husband duplicated the key and used the company car for a secret meeting with Amy. I processed the situation and confronted Nick. What? You were cheating?" Nick continued to make excuses. "No, maybe someone was using the car pretending to be me. Maybe they put the key in my bag to frame me." Nick looked smug as if he had thought of a clever excuse, but Jane sighed. "We checked the dashcam footage, and it's clear that you and Amy were getting along well in the car. Should we show it to your wife too?" Faced with undeniable evidence, Nick clenched his teeth and, after a deep sigh, admitted to the affair. Jane told him, "We will inform you about your punishment later. But don't expect a promotion, rather, prepare for a demotion." In a panic, Nick pleaded, "Jane, Senior. Please, not a demotion. I will have medical expenses. Look at my legs." But Jane remained unyielding. "The fact that you used the company car for an affair and that your legs are broken are unrelated." At that moment, the police returned to the room. "Sorry for the delay. We were conducting an investigation. And it's true that Nick was pushed onto the road and has a broken leg," the police explained. Nick, who had been crying just moments before, suddenly perked up. "See? It's true that my wife pushed me. Look, Heather. You better tell the truth now. Lying will only make it worse," he said, pointing at me and laughing. The police, looking puzzled at Nick, said, I never said your wife pushed you. We've identified the perpetrator from the surveillance camera footage. Suddenly, my mother-in-law began to fidget conspicuously. Well, there's no need to check the camera footage. When my own son says Heather pushed him, that's the best evidence, isn't it? She said, laughing exaggeratedly to the police. The police responded seriously to my mother-in-law. Ma'am, don't play dumb. We have video evidence that it was you who pushed your son. It appears he was hit by a motorcycle immediately after being pushed. So he wouldn't have had a chance to see who it was. We need to confirm this with your son too. Realizing she could no longer escape, my mother-in-law defiantly admitted, yes, I pushed my son. So what? Unable to contain my anger, I coldly accused her. How could you cause an accident to your own child and then blame me? That's truly despicable. My mother-in-law, unfazed, replied, because I didn't want to get caught. I sent you far away on purpose, so there would be no contradiction about you being home at the time of the accident, right? Jane and I were speechless. Nick, seeing his mother's attitude and realizing she nearly got him killed, appeared utterly shocked and began to unravel. Hey, Mom. What the heck are you talking about? Why can't you say that you didn't do it, that it's a lie? Why not? Explain yourself. Nick screamed, looking like he might strike her at any moment, prompting the police to hurriedly intervene. Despite being restrained, Nick continued unabated, Heather, I apologize for the affair. You don't have to do the housework or take care of my mother anymore. From now on, let this damn old woman do everything since she caused the accident. His mother, visibly frightened, shook her head. Seeing this, Nick grew even more agitated. What? Old hag. You can't say you can't do it. Before Heather came, you gave me an allowance and did all the housework, didn't you? Anyway, I can't work with this body. So you'd better work even if you have to crawl, he yelled. I was shocked, but his mother revealed, this is Nick's true nature. I've been verbally abused by Nick daily while taking care of him. I thought I was finally freed from this life when you came. She spoke tearfully. Even though she said that, I couldn't feel much sympathy for her, but I did feel a bit sorry. I had no intention of helping her or continuing to live in the family home. Seeing her son restrained by the police, she coldly remarked, Nick has treated me horribly for so long. He was always harsh to me and treated me like a slave before we were married. He squandered money on gambling and yelled at me to work more, never helping with cleaning or cooking at home, always complaining. I hoped he would change after marriage, but seeing how he treated you, Heather, I realized he hadn't changed. But if I confronted him, I didn't know what he would do. I feared that if you, Heather, got fed up and left, I'd face his relentless attacks alone, and as I've grown weaker, I started to fear him more and more. Then, before I knew it, I pushed him. His mother continued to pour out her grievances to the police, explaining in detail how violent and oppressive Nick had been. Her story seemed endless, and Jane and I left the hospital under police instruction. Eventually, she was arrested for attempted murder. There were various circumstances, including the fact that her son and husband had treated her terribly, but her clear intent to kill Nick led to her arrest. Even as she was being arrested by the police, she didn't resist and actually expressed relief, saying, If being away from Nick means going to jail, I'm happy to go. Finally, I'm freed from this painful life. As for me, life had also been mostly difficult at home. Since Nick had cheated on me, I couldn't continue living with him, and with his mother gone, I no longer needed to stay in the family home. I packed my things and left swiftly before Nick was discharged from the hospital. Although he was a victim and avoided arrest, he was demoted for duplicating the company car key and having an affair with a junior colleague. Moreover, he was dismissed for repeatedly using company funds to cover expenses for his affair dates. He received no severance pay and was even asked to compensate the company for the damages he caused. Nick complained to the end. Wait. I've been working hard since I was a new graduate, and they give me nothing. What a toxic company. I'd rather leave such a company. Apparently, he had no awareness that his actions were criminal. Nick had intended to marry his affair partner, but Amy, unwilling to care for a man with broken legs and without a job, fled, leaving him alone. I divorced Nick and made sure to demand alimony from both him and Amy. I kept his contact until the alimony was fully paid, but after everything was settled, I blocked him when he started sending daily emails saying, "I'm sorry. I truly want to reflect and start over." I then settled into a new home, explained my situation, and returned to my former workplace. Although I had resigned once before, everyone welcomed me back warmly. With no children, I decided to focus on my career and build it diligently, living each day with integrity. My name is Allison, and I'm a 37-year-old remote worker. I started working from home due to living with my in-laws. I met my husband, Tony, when I was 32, and we married when I was 34. Originally, I worked at a major cosmetics company, but living with my in-laws was decided when we got married. When we started living together, my mother-in-law told me, "It's only natural for a woman to stay home, prepare meals, heat the bath, and wait for her husband to return. It's absurd for you to work and come home later than your husband. If you can't do that, we'll have to divorce." If I had known my mother-in-law was so old-fashioned, I might have reconsidered marrying. However, divorce was not an option, so I secretly continued to work from home. I couldn't quit my job and I wanted to save money for emergencies. Avoiding my mother-in-law finding out about my work has been challenging, but I'm managing. However, what breaks my heart even more is the severe mistreatment from her. Before we married, there was no harassment or unpleasant behavior, so I thought we could get along fairly well. Once we started living together, it was nothing like I had imagined. Since moving in, I have been doing all the household chores, while my mother-in-law lazes around every day. Yet, she nitpicks everything I do. The next day after moving in, I started preparing meals. "What is this? You call this soup? This can't be called soup. And the stew is too bland, and the mixed vegetables are bad. Your cooking skills are disastrous," she would say. I was shocked since I lived alone before and cooked decently. My father-in-law ate quietly, but seeing this, my husband Tony intervened. "Mom, calm down. It's not that it's too bland or bad. It's just different from your cooking. She can learn your taste over time. Besides, it's rude to speak ill of the food Allison made for us." Hearing this, my mother-in-law sulked. "Tony, you're taking Allison's side over mine." I'm disappointed. I don't intend to teach Allison how to cook at all. If you want my approval, go to a cooking school and learn by yourself. and she returned to her room during the meal. Tony tried to reassure me, "It's okay, let's just leave her be for a while. I think she's just confused. She asked us to live with her. But she doesn't know how to interact. I'll talk to her later so you don't have to worry." I decided to trust my husband and leave it to him. However, about a month after starting to live with my in-laws, my relationship with my mother-in-law remained strained. It seemed she held a grudge against Tony for scolding her about the cooking. It's all Allison's fault that I got scolded by Tony. He told me not to say horrible things afterwards. Why should I be scolded when it's Allison who made the terrible food? Even my husband thought it was Allison's fault. It's so frustrating. You will take responsibility for this. Accused of being unreasonable. The harassment escalated from there. I thought about consulting Tony again, but he was involved in a big project, and I didn't want to stress him unnecessarily. So even as the harassment escalated, I kept silent about it to Tony. Being criticized for my cooking became a daily occurrence. However, I wasn't confident, so I took my mother-in-law's words seriously and tried to use them as a learning opportunity. But to her, it seemed like I was being defiant. I made the seasoning a bit stronger today, just as you mentioned yesterday. Would you mind tasting it? I asked. She glared coldly and said, "Are you saying I nitpicked your cooking again? You're truly a rotten daughter-in-law." I didn't say a single thing like that. I'm not saying you nitpicked. I'm just trying to adjust it to your taste as you suggested. I tried to smooth things over, but she continued to accuse me. See, you're blaming me after all. You changed the seasoning because I mentioned it, right? That's the same as blaming me. That's why I said you're rotten. You won't admit your own faults. I'm ashamed to tell the others that you're Tony's wife. No matter what I said, it seemed useless, so I apologized to my mother-in-law, admitting I was wrong. Then she gloated. "See, I knew you were at fault. By apologizing, you've admitted your wrongdoing. If you had done this from the beginning, you would still be honest and cute. Don't even think about defying me from now on." Although it was frustrating, I thought it was fine if that resolved the situation smoothly. Another day, she ordered me to tend to the garden. As I was pulling weeds, she commented, "Are you doing it properly, Allison?" "Oh no, there are still so many weeds left." "Where are you looking?" "Look, this place is still not clean at all." "Ah, I thought I'd pull out the small weeds after removing the larger ones. So I haven't done it yet." "I'll do it after I take a break," I responded. My mother-in-law sighed. "What? Are you saying that I misunderstood and got angry for no reason? Either way, you haven't done it yet, so it's not my fault. Also, don't talk about taking breaks. It's not even midsummer, you don't need a break. Come on, get back to it right now." I felt like rebelling, but I held back and resumed the work. On another day, I received unreasonable complaints about cleaning. I was cleaning the windows the way my grandmother taught me, using folded old newspapers dipped in water, which makes them shine. Since it's a way to utilize newspapers that would otherwise be thrown away, I always used this method for cleaning windows. However, seeing this, my mother-in-law mocked me. "Cleaning windows with newspaper? What era are you from? I never do such a thing," she said. "What if it scratches the windows?" I didn't respond but simply apologized. Then, my mother-in-law sighed again. "Are you incapable of anything but apologizing? Don't you have a will of your own?" So I expressed my opinion as she had demanded. Many people worry that cleaning with newspaper might scratch the windows. I explained. But I use the folded crease of the paper, so it doesn't scratch. Besides, it cleans better than using a regular towel. My mother-in-law's face turned red. What, you think my knowledge is lacking? Just because you know more. Don't get too pleased with yourself. She shouted and stormed off somewhere. Whether I rebelled or expressed my will is told. I was scolded. If anyone knows what the right thing to do in such cases is, I would like them to tell me. After continuously being scolded for unreasonable things, and beginning to feel mentally exhausted, I heard something from my husband. My brother is currently on a business trip. But he's going to have a wedding when he returns, he said. It's scheduled for the month after next. But how much should we give for the wedding gift? I'm not very good at this sort of thing, he confessed, so I decided to take care of the wedding gift. However, I never thought he would marry. He was so focused on work that he used to declare he didn't need a girlfriend. My husband said as he enjoyed his evening drink and talked about his brother, Jason. He was dedicated to his job and used to be transferred a lot. But he's planning to refuse transfers for a while after getting married. It should be manageable. Apparently, his fiancée understands that he's often transferred. But I hope they prioritize their time as a couple for at least a while after getting married. He said they plan to move after the wedding, so I thought I'd help out. My husband continued before falling asleep. 1 week before Jason's wedding, I was involved in a traffic accident. I had to be hospitalized for at least a week, making it impossible for me to attend the wedding. When my husband brought my in-laws to visit me, my mother-in-law sneered as my husband went to buy drinks. How could you get into a traffic accident, Allison? You must be so clumsy. You could have avoided it. Oh, it's just so stupid of you. It's such an ominous thing to happen just before your brother-in-law's wedding, she remarked. I screamed internally that I would have avoided the accident if I could and tried to calm myself down. When my husband returned, my mother-in-law suddenly changed her tone. Allison, are you really okay? Seeing you in such pain hurts my heart. If I could, I'd take your place to ease my mind. It's tough, but just try to get better soon. If there's anything I can do, just let me know. I want to help as much as I can. So don't hesitate to rely on me, she said, pretending to be a good mother-in-law. It was so obvious it almost made me laugh, but the pain was too much to bear. Even though my husband visited me daily and my mother-in-law occasionally, her visits felt more like she just couldn't wait to make sarcastic remarks. Are you still lying down? It's been 3 days, you should be healed by now. Stop acting like a victim and pretending to be injured. Because of your accident, Tony has to visit the hospital every day, which means he has less time for me. Even at home, he keeps saying he's worried and wants to check on you. Give me back my dear son, she said. Eventually, I felt it was time to cut ties with my mother-in-law, and decided to discuss this with my husband. When he came to visit, I told him everything. I've been harassed by your mother for a long time. I refrained from consulting you because you were busy with an important project. Even after the accident, she calls it a visit but keeps making sarcastic remarks. I've managed so far, but I can't endure it anymore. I want to cut ties with your mother, I said, and my husband agreed with me. Before I could tell my mother-in-law that I wanted to cut ties, something happened. My injury worsened, and my hospital stay was extended, making it impossible for me to attend the wedding. On the day of the wedding, as I was thinking about the bride and groom, my mother-in-law called. What are you thinking, not attending your brother-in-law's wedding? How heartless can you be? I don't know what you're up to, but come here right now. I explained that I couldn't come because I had already informed her that my hospitalization was extended. Furious, she snapped. You must be healed by now. You're definitely pretending to be sick. You don't want to attend the wedding, so you're using sickness as an excuse. I won't be fooled by you. I don't need such a terrible daughter-in-law anymore. Leave our family immediately, and hung up. I actually felt relieved as I had been wanting to cut ties with her. This way, I didn't have to explain why. That night, I told my husband what his mother had said and asked him to pack our things. When I was discharged, we moved out of my in-laws' house and stayed at a hotel until we found a new place. My mother-in-law didn't expect her son to leave too and looked very frustrated. Thanks to a friend, we quickly found a new home and started a new life together. After a while, my mother-in-law called. Ah, Allison, it's been a while. Are you doing well? I called today because I wanted to apologize. I deeply regret the terrible things I've said. I really regret driving you away. So, let's get along well from now on, shall we? But I felt no anger because I knew why she was contacting me. I heard you gave a generous wedding gift to Jason. Was it $5,000? It's amazing that you could give such a large amount. But hearing about it, I really reevaluated my opinion of you. So feel free to come back anytime. I used to be the head of a company. But now I work from home and trust my skilled team to handle things. I had enough savings, and I had given $5,000 as an apology for not attending the wedding and for moving expenses. Knowing this, my mother-in-law must have contacted me because she realized I had money. I firmly told her, I have no intention of getting involved with you anymore. And I know that you contacted me because of the money, and hung up the phone. After that, she contacted me several times asking to borrow money. But I blocked her calls and made sure she couldn't reach me. Finally, I returned to work and managed to focus on my job again. My husband and I are enjoying life together, without any problems. You are not worthy to be our daughter-in-law. Please do not come to the wedding. That's right. I hate that my sister-in-law is so ugly. I don't even want to see your face on the wedding day. I am currently being bombarded with such verbal abuse by my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. But I am not stupid enough to give in to such things. I'll give them a surprise they'll never forget. My name is Ashley. Just the other day, my boyfriend Jeff proposed to me. And we decided to get married. We met at a mixer, felt a connection, and quickly started dating. After a year of dating, everything progressed smoothly. Is it really okay for things to go this well? Just as I was basking in this happiness, we hit a major obstacle during our marriage introduction. The visit to my parents went smoothly, and they really liked my kind husband. However, the problem was on my husband's family's side. When I greeted them with "nice to meet you" at his house, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law reacted beyond my wildest imagination. Jeff, are you really going to marry this girl? That's right. She seems like she's pretending to be something she's not. I can't accept her. Well, I don't intend to. You're trying to take Jeff from our family, aren't you? It's obvious what you're up to. Are you the type who enjoys tearing families apart? Oh, there are such women. Despite the confusion, I somehow denied it. No, that's not true. I hope to get along with you two as well. Stop it, please. I can't stand a girl who seems as nasty as you. Me neither. I absolutely can't stand the thought of you becoming part of our family. How could you? Then, my husband, who had been listening to the conversation, yelled at the two of them, "Enough already. Mom, Linda, what are you talking about? I chose Ashley. We're about to be happy together, why would you say such things? But, Linda, you hate this girl too, right? Of course I do. Jeff, can't you find someone better? I want Ashley. No matter what you two say, I'm going to marry Ashley. I've already decided. Please support us as a family." Taking advantage of Jeff's statement, my father-in-law also chimed in. "Both of you are being childish." Perhaps moved by my husband's earnestness, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law finally quieted down. They still looked unsatisfied until the end. But with the persuasion of my husband and father-in-law, we somehow received their approval for the marriage. Even after that, interactions with my in-laws increased, but every time we met, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law started to harass me. Today, we have a dinner at my in-laws, but I am not welcomed there. As I headed to the kitchen to help with the meal preparations, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law immediately started insulting me. Oh my. I still can't believe this girl is becoming Jeff's wife. Really though. She's not impressive at all, and she's ugly too. What? We're just stating the facts. You're shamelessly trying to become part of our family. That's right. You're not worthy to be Jeff's wife. Why don't you just break up and disappear? Please don't say such things. I truly love Jeff. Stop it, please. It's disgusting. Jeff is unfortunate to be loved by you. Know your place. In this manner, they would complain when my husband or father-in-law weren't around. It wasn't just verbal abuse. They would intentionally bump into me or step on my feet. A series of small harassments continued. Among them, the harassment regarding the wedding was particularly bad. I would regularly receive calls from my mother-in-law. "Ashley, when is the next wedding meeting?" Well, as I've said before, Jeff and I are thinking it through together. So please don't worry. Shut up. Jeff told me to come along. Is that true? Jeff hasn't said a word about it. Just shut up. Are you saying I'm lying? Of course, my husband hadn't invited the two of them to any meetings. After that, my mother-in-law kept persistently calling and emailing, and even showed up at our apartment. Even when trying on dresses, although I am the bride. They came to the shop and complained. Such a luxurious dress doesn't suit you, Ashley. That's true. It would be fine if she were as beautiful as me. But since Ashley is ugly, she's completely overshadowed by the dress. But Jeff and I both like this one the most. Are you talking back? Can't you listen to your mother-in-law's advice? That's right. If you want to be recognized as family, you should just listen to what we say, right? Well, but look, go for that much simpler one. Your face isn't striking, so that's enough for you. Exactly. Just so you know, I won't forgive you if you wear a dress more luxurious than the one I had at my wedding. Even during the wedding preparations, they continuously insulted me. My preferences were completely disregarded, and the dress was almost forcibly decided for me. I consulted my husband and asked him to speak to my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, but they didn't listen at all. In fact, their behavior towards me only got worse. My husband and I were exhausted from dealing with them, who were impossible to reason with. One day, perhaps sensing how troubled I was by the harassment, my husband took me out for a walk. As we walked slowly, he spoke with concern. "Ashley, I'm sorry. No matter what I say, both Mom and Linda won't listen. It's okay. Things might calm down a bit after the wedding. Even if it's only until then, it must be hard for you, Ashley? It's really okay. I also want to be recognized as a part of the family." Then, my husband stopped, turned to face me directly. "I'm thinking of cutting ties with Mom and Linda." "What? Why?" "I don't want to make you suffer anymore." "So, wait a minute. It's really okay. Besides, we still have the wedding, right? But how about this? Let's think about whether to really cut ties after the wedding is over." "That's fine, right? Is that okay with you, Ashley? I'm sure your mother and sister will understand. If it's still too hard, we'll think about it together then." "Okay, I'll respect your wishes, Ashley." The fact that my husband gave me the option to cut ties strangely lightened my heart. As we continued walking, he stopped again. "What's wrong?" When I asked, my husband pointed in a certain direction. When I looked that way, I saw my sister-in-law in a cafe. She was intertwining her fingers with a man who wasn't her husband, chatting intimately. Seeing that, my husband immediately muttered, "That's disgusting." "Hey Jeff, is that possibly?" "Yeah, it's definitely something shady. She keeps telling you that you are not suitable as a wife, but look who's talking. This is definitely bad." Then, as if struck by an idea, my husband exclaimed, "That's it." He took out his smartphone, grinning as he took photos of my sister-in-law's affair. "All right. Now I have proof. Ashley, I have a good idea." My husband then told me about a plan. Proof of the affair alone isn't enough. This plan needs your cooperation as well. So please bear with it just a little longer, okay? "Jeff, are you serious about this?" "Of course. It will be the best surprise, huh? But if we do that, don't worry, I'm ready for this." Thus, our revenge drama began. On the wedding day, after finishing my makeup and getting dressed, I was waiting alone in the dressing room when my mother-in-law and sister-in-law barged in without knocking. As soon as they saw me in my bridal attire, they burst out laughing mockingly. "Whatever you wear, you still look plain." "Really? Excuse me, but could you please wait outside?" "What? Still being cheeky to the very end. We came all this way just to see that face of yours. Really, that plain dress just cancels out the plainness of your face. Did you come here just to say that?" Normally, I'd quietly take whatever they said, but not today. Perhaps my attitude didn't sit well with them, as they began yelling furiously. "What's with that look? Are you trying to say we're the bad ones? How dare you become Jeff's wife? I will never accept it. Is that all you want to say? Basically, you are not suitable to be our daughter-in-law. Please do not attend the ceremony today." "That's right. I hate having such an ugly sister-in-law. I don't even want to see your face." When they said that with their face flushed, I declared, "I got it. With pleasure." "Huh? So, I shouldn't attend the ceremony, right? Well, you're the bride. Do you understand what you're saying?" At my sister-in-law's words, I smiled and nodded. "Just as you said, I won't attend the ceremony today." "Oh, you all should head over quickly? The star of the show, Jeff, is waiting." With a broad smile, I said this, and they looked shocked and quickly left. Of course, this was all part of the plan. I had no intention of giving up on my own wedding. It was a strategy Jeff came up with, but it seemed to be working better than expected. After being messed with for so long, I'll give them a taste of their own medicine. My heart was pounding with excitement over the great surprise we had thought up. The ceremony began, and first, the groom, my husband, made his entrance. I changed into casual clothes and took on the role of managing the video, so I wouldn't be noticed. My husband, microphone in hand, addressed the attendees. Well, thank you all for gathering here today for us. However, unfortunately, we will have to cancel today's ceremony. At those words, the venue buzzed with surprise. Not only the other guests, but also my in-laws and sister-in-law's family were all stunned. As if to calm the venue, my husband continued. We would like to disperse now, but since you've all come, we would like to show a surprise movie instead. Please enjoy your viewing. At my husband's signal, I pressed the play button on the video. The edited video began to play on the screen provided. First, there was audio of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law's abusive language. We added subtitles to their abusive words and edited it for clarity. Basically, you are not suitable to be our daughter-in-law. Please do not attend the ceremony today. That's right. I hate having such an ugly sister-in-law. I don't even want to see your face. The guests all grinned as they listened to the recorded abusive shouts from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, glancing over at the family seats. Whether out of anger or shame, my husband's family was shaking with red faces. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law, surprised, could only gape and stare at the video. Thanks to all the provocation in the dressing room, we were able to record some prime abusive shouts. As I savored their expressions, I played the next video. What flowed next was the footage of my sister-in-law's affair. At that moment, my sister-in-law screamed and shuddered. Whispers started to be heard from the venue. Hey, isn't this bad? To think she harassed the bride and then cheated, that's disgusting. Look at the family seats. It's totally like a wake. Perhaps his patience finally snapped when the video ended. My father-in-law raised his voice in anger. Of course, not at my husband or me, but at the mother-in-law and sister-in-law. You too, what have you done to Ashley? Ever since she came to our house to greet us, you haven't reflected at all, have you? It's not like that, dear. Believe me, Dad. It was that woman's fault. Silence. To treat someone Jeff chose like that. You two are the worst as human beings. Don't be angry, please. It's all because that woman was so cheeky. Yeah, right. Mom and I. We were just trying to train her to be a suitable wife for our family. Then, the sister-in-law's husband pointed at her and said, Suitable wife? How dare you say that? Huh? After cheating on me secretly, you still dare talk big like this? How could you betray me? It's not like that. That person isn't like that. What? You were intertwining fingers looking cozy, and now this? Stop joking around to this extent. After such damning videos, their excuses held no weight. The anger of the father-in-law and sister-in-law's husband didn't subside, and the two women could only shrink away. Then, I appeared in casual clothes at just the right moment, and the mother-in-law and sister-in-law directed their anger towards me. You. What have you done? I thought you were just obeying the order not to attend the ceremony. So this was your plan? Well, I'm sorry for doing it this way. but I had no other choice. Shut up. You fool. The worst woman. That's why I hated a woman like you. You damn. I had intended to keep things as peaceful as possible. But their words completely removed any restraint I had. Taking a deep breath, I let them have it. The worst. Damn. That's my line. Do you have any idea how much you've harassed me? Put yourself in my shoes, being harassed for such petty reasons. You are the lowest of mother and daughter. With a volume I had never used before. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were taken aback. Ignoring them, I delivered the final blow. I don't need to be acknowledged by you as family. I refuse it. All I love is Jeff. If you feel that way, I will mercilessly cut you off too. I don't care what happens to you. Never involve yourselves with me again. When I was panting after saying that, my husband said, "Let's go," and took my hand. As expected, the wedding ended disastrously. The mother-in-law and sister-in-law were scorned by the attendees and became the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. Afterwards, both the mother-in-law and sister-in-law were divorced by their spouses and apparently kicked out of their homes. They tried to seek help from friends and relatives, but by then their misdeeds were well known, and no one was willing to extend a hand. Both being housewives without money, they used up their savings to rent an apartment. Though once close, they now spend their days bickering constantly. It's all because Mom said to drive Ashley out. What are you talking about? You also said you didn't like her, right? That's right, but we didn't have to go that far, did we? What? It's also because of your affair. Shut up, just shut up. I hate you, Mom. Truly, what a deplorable mother and daughter. Meanwhile, my husband and I moved close to my parents' house. We occasionally meet with the father-in-law, but we've cut ties with the mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and finally freed ourselves from stress. Now, we can spend our days happily without any worries. I won't be able to attend your 60th birthday celebration because I'm on a business trip. Then I don't consider you family. Don't bother coming back. You're getting a divorce. My mother-in-law decides such things on her own. Well then, I'll do just as she wishes. I decided not to come back. Then, my mother-in-law kept calling me desperately. Please, come back home right now. My name is Tracy, I'm a 30-year-old office worker. My husband Joey and I have been married for 3 years. It's been that long, but honestly, I didn't think our marriage would last this long. I met my husband through work, as he frequently visited my company for business. His earnestness in sales was truly impressive. I admired his sincerity towards his work, and every time I saw him, he would greet me properly, which made me think he was a nice person. One day, I happened to go to a bar with a coworker and ran into him. We ended up drinking together and exchanged contact information, which led to meals and outings. After dating for about a year, he proposed, and we decided to get married. It was an unexpected progression that brought us closer and led us to marriage, which felt like fate. At our wedding, many colleagues and friends from both our workplaces attended, making it a memorable and wonderful ceremony. The early days of married life were truly enjoyable. However, concerns started to arise, particularly involving my mother-in-law. I had felt this way since we greeted her for our marriage, as she seemed overly attentive to my husband. Joey is really excellent. He was good at studies during his student days and is very competent at work now. He's truly a son to be proud of. Mom, that's embarrassing. I'm just stating the truth. You'd better quietly accept that you're amazing. My mother-in-law would always praise him excessively and talk about him endlessly when he was around. Speaking of which, Joey was good at sprinting in elementary school, always finishing first. Not just studies, but he was also talented in sports. He was a real genius. If it were just doting parental praise, it wouldn't be a problem. But her excessive love for her son made her quite harsh towards me. "Tracy, you're preparing nutritious meals for Joey, right? Take photos of your daily meals and send them to me." I was bewildered when she first mentioned this right after we got married. However, after repeated requests, I reluctantly sent her the photos. Then, my mother-in-law would constantly criticize the meals I prepared. Not enough vegetables. The amount of meat is insufficient. It looks bad. The menu lacks variety. She would freely complain like that. But I'm also working and busy with my job, so I can't focus that much on meals. Joey says they're delicious and finishes his meals every day, and he has never complained. However, being constantly criticized by my mother-in-law made me feel insecure, leading me to try making more elaborate dishes even when tired from work. But this was physically very taxing. My husband can't cook, and since my mother-in-law demands that I send photos daily, even if my husband were to cook, she'd mistakenly think I made it and criticize me harshly. So I must prepare dinner no matter what. If work were less demanding, it might be possible, but it's tough when I'm busy and need to work overtime. And relentlessly, my mother-in-law calls to complain. "Hey, you're late sending today's dinner photo." "Sorry, I just got home." "What? Just got home? What are you talking about? How can you let Joey wait hungry until this late? Unbelievable. What have you been doing?" "I was at work, overtime." "Don't lie. You must have been out having fun." "No. I'm an office worker, you know." "Even if you say that, you're not given any significant work, are you?" My mother-in-law completely underestimates me. It's probably because of my educational background. I graduated from college, but not a very prestigious one. Therefore, my mother-in-law looks down on me incredibly. A woman from such a third-rate college married my Joey. I really hate it. Thinking back, she said such things even during our marriage introduction. Meeting her for the first time and hearing her say such things made me think she was an unreasonable person. And looking back, Joey just gave a wry smile at the time and did not defend me. Perhaps he thinks the same as his mother. Such thoughts made me feel uneasy, and as we continued our marriage, I realized he was a mama's boy. Well, being doted on and pampered by his mother, it's natural that he treasures her unusually. He often wanted to return to his parents' house. Initially, he made time for us to go out together, but gradually, he became less considerate and more eager to visit his mother. I let my husband go back alone because I didn't want to visit. Every time he would pout and ask, "Tracy, why aren't you coming?" But I tried not to let it bother me. During Easter and Christmas, I couldn't refuse, so I had to go to my in-laws, and each time it was unpleasant. "Tracy, you really are terrible at cooking. The food in the photos you send is so bad, and I feel sorry for Joey every day. When I actually saw you cook, your skills were shockingly poor. You're failing as a woman." While I cooked, my mother-in-law would berate me. It's impossible to cook with her in the way. She doesn't even tell me where anything is, so of course, the flow gets disrupted. Yet, she still finds it right to berate me. She really has a nasty character. She sees me as a great enemy, probably thinking I've stolen her only son. I was thoroughly fed up with Joey's mama's boy tendencies and my mother-in-law's harassment. I thought several times that I would get a divorce this year. Work was tough, and I worried about regretting the decision to divorce after all the effort to marry, so I ended up maintaining the status quo. Before I knew it, 3 years of marriage had passed. On top of the usual harassment, my mother-in-law started nagging me about having children. It's been 3 years since you got married, and you haven't shown me a single grandchild's face. You're useless, coming from a third-rate university. Everything about you is third-rate, including homemaking and work. The only contribution you can make is having children. Why do I have to be subjected to such comments? I was beyond angry, and I was appalled. People who are truly happy do not choose to continue belittling others. If you are truly content, you naturally wouldn't bother much about others in a good way. My mother-in-law harasses me so persistently that she must not be walking a happy path in life. Although her harassment troubled me, just thinking this way somewhat lightened my heart. However, my mother-in-law started doing something even more bothersome. She began visiting our house frequently. Previously, it was Joey who often went to visit his parents, so my mother-in-law rarely came to our house. But lately, she started coming over, claiming it was because Joey was too busy. When I come home late from overtime, I find her belongings at the entrance. My mother-in-law and Joey would often enjoy a meal in the living room. "Hi, Tracy, you're back. I was just having a lovely time with Joey." "Too bad." "Hi, you were here?" "Yes, I came to see Joey." "There's nothing prepared for you, so make something for yourself." She said this with a triumphant look as she ate. In fact, I didn't want to eat her cooking anyway. I was tired from work and took an aggressive stance. "Did you use the groceries without asking? It's common sense to at least contact me." When I said this, my mother-in-law's face turned red with anger. "What? Why should I have to say such things to you? Living off Joey's support, and yet you have the nerve. Living off his support?" I asked this while looking at my husband, who awkwardly averted his gaze. Whether my mother-in-law is mistaken or Joey has lied, I don't know, but the reality is that I am the one supporting our household finances. I am currently a manager at my company. The company itself is doing well lately, so my salary is quite substantial. On the other hand, despite his high academic credentials, Joey is unable to climb the corporate ladder due to the surplus of elites at his company. He is constantly overtaken by his younger colleagues, and has now been a sidetracked employee. His salary has been decreasing yearly, and it is now about half of mine. So, practically, I am the one sustaining our household. Unaware of this, my mother-in-law continues to berate me. "That's right. You're in the position of asking him to marry you. How can you be so insolent? You're truly hopeless. Can't do housework, can't work properly, and can't have children. It's just a series of can'ts. Who knows when Joey might leave you?" I looked at Joey, who continued to look uncomfortable. Then, he said weakly, "Mom, don't say things like I'm leaving her. Oh, Joey is always so kind. But if I don't be strict, this woman will get carried away. I won't allow that." I was at my wit's end with my mother-in-law. I never thought she could be this persistent. Amidst this, another troublesome situation arose. It happened while I was away on a business trip. My smartphone kept ringing so much during work that I wondered what it could be. I took a moment to go to the bathroom to check it, and saw that my mother-in-law had been calling non-stop. I wondered if something had happened. Even so, feeling it was probably nothing important, I decided to turn off the phone and focus on my work. After finishing, when I turned on my phone, there were even more calls from my mother-in-law. Thinking it might be something serious, I called her back. She answered the phone instantly. "You're late. Answer the phone immediately, you fool." As soon as I answered, she started shouting. Thinking it would hurt my ears, I quickly switched to speakerphone. "What do you want from me? We're having my 60th birthday celebration tomorrow, and you must attend." "What? Your 60th birthday?" I regretted calling back. "Yes, I've invited relatives, so you must come. You'll be preparing the food, and I'm leaving all the party preparations to you." "That's impossible." "Huh? What are you saying? You don't have the right to refuse. I'm on a business trip right now. What business trip? You're probably just on vacation. Hurry back. Stop it. I'm working and it's impossible for me. I can't attend your 60th birthday celebration because I'm on a business trip. I firmly refused. It seemed my mother-in-law was quite angry and she raised her voice again. Then I don't consider you family. Stay on your business trips forever. Don't bother coming back. You're getting a divorce. My mother-in-law decided such things on her own. But I had reached my limit. I would do just as she wished. I decided not to return. I ignored all the incoming calls from Joey. Then, my mother-in-law started bombarding me with calls, but I ignored all of them too. I went back to my parents' house and commuted to work from there. Before I knew it, a month had passed. Then, my mother-in-law started calling again. Reluctantly, I answered. She pleaded with me in a voice I had never heard before. Please, come back right now. If things continue this way, Joey will be. My mother-in-law was in a panic, understandably, since Joey's salary alone couldn't cover the rent for their house. And since he doesn't do any household chores, she must have been coming over to clean and do laundry. However, being unable to pay the rent and potentially getting evicted would be quite troublesome. Being unable to pay rent is essentially the same as being in debt. My mother-in-law was desperate, but it had nothing to do with me. The signal seems bad. I pretended I couldn't hear her. In any case, I will be divorcing Joey. Goodbye. What? Hold on. I hung up the phone and blocked my mother-in-law's number. Then I hired a lawyer and demanded a divorce from my husband. I was prepared to take it to court if necessary, and he quickly agreed to the divorce. Thus, I was able to divorce Joey successfully. Moreover, I was able to demand some alimony from my husband. He returned to his parents' house after the divorce, but he seems to be feeling very awkward as he had lied to his mother all this time. He also made a mistake at work and faced a pay cut. My former mother-in-law was shocked to learn that her son had become so unreliable at his company, and she was so distraught that she became bedridden. Along with this news, Joey sent numerous emails asking for help. They truly are a hopeless pair. Cutting ties was definitely the right decision. Meanwhile, I moved into a single apartment near my workplace and have been able to focus more on my job. I'm not interested in love for now, and I plan to continue delivering results at work and aim higher. My name is Stacy. I am a housewife living with my husband Patrick and mother-in-law. I just turned 27 and we are in our 3rd year of marriage. We don't have any children yet. My husband tells me not to rush, but my mother-in-law pressures me when we're alone. One day, while my husband was at work, I was alone with my mother-in-law. Suddenly, she sighed heavily and started making snide remarks. Hey, are you infertile? Why don't you have children? I don't think I'm infertile. Then you should have children. Is it because you and your husband don't get along? No, that's not it. That's good then. But if you can't have children, I'll have you divorced. Divorce? Of course. What's the point of having a daughter-in-law? Who can't carry on the family line? That's so cruel. The sneers about not being able to have children escalated daily. Soon, it became a daily occurrence to be rushed for children. I thought about discussing it with my husband. But I didn't want to strain the parent-child relationship, so I refrained. My husband comes from a single-mother family, and he has an older sister, Mandy, who is married and living at her husband's family home. They have been married for over 5 years but still have no children. Thus, my mother-in-law was eagerly awaiting the birth of her first grandchild. However, being rushed didn't feel good, and I was becoming increasingly stressed. Then, one day, I received some good news. Mandy was pregnant. Upon hearing this, my mother-in-law was overjoyed and looked forward to the birth of her grandchild. Since learning of Mandy's pregnancy, she stopped pressuring me. I finally felt relieved from the stress, but it was short-lived. My mother-in-law started saying outrageous things when my husband was not around. "Stacy, may I speak with you? What's wrong? When Mandy's child is born, could you please move out of this house?" "What? Of course, I won't make Patrick leave. Just you. Why? Are you saying we should live apart even though we're married?" "That's right. I want to prepare a room for my grandchild here. Give your room to my grandchild. This house is originally ours, after all. I absolutely refuse to live apart from Patrick. Are you defying me? You've got some nerve. I'll make sure to drive you out no matter what." The next day, while I was out, my mother-in-law had packed my belongings. When my husband came home and noticed, he became suspicious. "Mom, why are you packing Stacy's things?" "Oh, that. I want to turn Stacy's room into a room for Mandy's child when she's born." "A room for the grandchild? Then what about Stacy's room? This is our house originally, right? Stacy's room never existed. It's my house, so I can do whatever I want, can't I? Are you serious? If you do that, we'll stop living together." "Why? Aren't you happy about becoming an uncle? That's not the issue. Put Stacy's things back the way they were. Choosing your wife over your mother, I see. I'm disappointed." My mother-in-law said this and went back to her room crying. The next day, she continued trying to pack my things. "Don't tell Patrick," she said. And I felt stressed again. Then, one day when Mandy visited our house, she suddenly said something unbelievable. "Once the baby is born, can I leave it with you, Stacy? You're a childless housewife, so you must be free, right? Take care of it?" "Why? Unlike you, Stacy, I'm busy. So become my personal babysitter." "That's impossible. Then who will take care of my child?" "It's tough for just mom, isn't it? Don't you want to raise your own child?" "That's why I'm busy." Listening to her selfish remarks, my mother-in-law nodded as if it were the most natural thing in the world. When I firmly refused my sister-in-law Mandy's request, she got angry and left. A few days later, Mandy came crying suddenly. "Mom, I had a miscarriage." "What? A miscarriage?" Mandy cried out and clung to our mother-in-law, who also looked like she might start crying any moment. "Just a few days ago, we were all talking about the future with the child. I never thought something like this would happen." I was so saddened that I stood frozen. Then Mandy glared at me and screamed, "What are you looking at? Go away." Perhaps she wanted to take her frustration out on someone. Thinking this, I did as she said and went back to my room. From that day, my mother-in-law was in a foul mood. Knowing about Mandy's miscarriage, my husband said, "Let's leave her be for now," and refrained from speaking to her. When my husband went to work, her mood worsened, and she began to vent her irritation by making sarcastic comments to me. "You're so carefree. Mandy had a miscarriage, and you're not even a little upset. That's not true. It's all your fault she miscarried. You refused to be the babysitter." "What? Her miscarriage was because she felt anxious after you refused to babysit. Poor Mandy. It's all your fault. How are you going to take responsibility? blaming me for Mandy's miscarriage. My mother-in-law began to harass me out of resentment. One day, when my husband and I returned from a meal out on his day off, I found all my belongings thrown out into the hallway. Seeing this, my husband exclaimed, "This is the last straw," and furiously confronted his mother. "Did you do this, Mom?" "Yes, what's wrong with that?" "Stop it. Stop taking your anger out on Stacy." "I'm not taking my anger out. It's Stacy's fault Mandy miscarried. So what's wrong with taking revenge on her behalf?" "Stacy's fault? How does that even make sense?" "Forget it, do whatever you want." With that, my husband took my hand and led me outside. Once we were alone in the car, he apologized. "Sorry for all this. Let's end the cohabitation." "Yeah, that would be best." From then on, we started looking for an apartment to live in, just the two of us. Unaware of this, my mother-in-law continued trying to drive me out alone and escalated her harassment. She threw away the food I made and even my favorite clothes. I had been feeling unwell, likely due to stress, with nausea and headaches so severe that there were days I couldn't get out of bed. Noticing this, my husband worried and accompanied me to the hospital on his day off. To our surprise, the hospital visit revealed I was pregnant. My husband and I held hands and rejoiced on the spot. However, I was still concerned about my mother-in-law. What would she say if we announced the pregnancy at this time? For now, we decided not to tell her until I was in a stable period and just take it easy, claiming I was unwell. Morning sickness was so severe that moving wasn't an option. So we put off apartment hunting until I felt better. To reduce stress, my husband suggested I stay at my parents' house while he was at work during the unstable period. I explained to my parents that my mother-in-law was unstable due to Mandy's miscarriage. My parents agreed that leaving her alone for now is the right thing to do, and supported me at home while I struggled with severe morning sickness. Wanting to avoid any stress, I made efforts to stay away from my mother-in-law until the stable period was near. One day, just before entering the stable period, my husband came to pick me up from my parents' house after work, and we returned home together, only to find my mother-in-law and Mandy standing defiantly at the entrance. My husband asked what was going on, and my mother-in-law, looking displeased, pulled something out of her pocket. Upon closer inspection, it was an ultrasound photo from the hospital. "Why do you have that, Mother?" "I found it while snooping through your room." "You're pregnant?" "Give up on it. It would hurt my daughter too much since she just had a miscarriage." "Give up? Why? If you have a child now, it will hurt Mandy, won't it?" Hearing my mother-in-law's words, my husband became angrier than I'd ever seen him. "Don't mess with us." Then Mandy spoke up. "The miscarriage was your fault. I won't let you have this child, understand? Why should I be blamed so much just for being pregnant?" As I thought about this, a feeling of indignation sprouted within me, and the anger I had been suppressing reached its limit and spilled out of me. "I'm cutting ties with my in-laws." My mother-in-law and sister-in-law both responded in unison, "What? You only think about yourselves and never consider our happiness. I don't want to involve my child with people like you anymore." As I said this, my husband continued to agree with me. "I agree with Stacy. Thanks for packing up, Mom. Actually, we've almost decided where to live, so we're leaving soon." My mother-in-law was furious. "Don't decide on your own," but we ignored her and left the house. We stayed at my parents' house that night and signed a lease for an apartment the following weekend. We resolved to end the cohabitation cleanly and distance ourselves from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Finally, I started living a stress-free life, entered a stable period, and felt completely healthy. My husband also said we should have done this sooner, as my husband and I got used to living together, and my pregnancy became more apparent. My previously silent mother-in-law suddenly called. "Something terrible has happened. Come right now," she said, and hung up. Her tone was urgent. So we visited my in-laws' house for the first time in a while. Upon arriving, we could hear my mother-in-law and sister-in-law arguing inside. When we entered and urged them to calm down, my mother-in-law began explaining through tears. According to her, my sister-in-law had returned home suddenly saying she was getting divorced and demanding compensation. It turned out my sister-in-law had been cheating for years and was pregnant with her lover's child. She had planned to raise the child as her husband's, but midway, the lover suggested they terminate the pregnancy. She was afraid of being exposed by a DNA test someday. My sister-in-law had lied about having a miscarriage, but her husband found the medical bills and discovered she had an abortion. Apparently, her husband had already suspected something was off with the timing of the pregnancy and when they had tried for a child. When the abortion came to light, he suspected an affair and hired a detective, which confirmed my sister-in-law had been cheating for years. Enraged, her husband and his parents kicked her out and demanded compensation. As a housewife, my sister-in-law turned to my mother-in-law for help. However, after learning the whole story, my mother-in-law became furious, and a huge argument erupted. After hearing everything, my husband said, "It has nothing to do with us anymore." Then my mother-in-law clung to him. "Don't say that. I was deceived by Mandy. I regret kicking you out. I apologize. So let's live together again." I didn't think living on a pension alone would be this hard, thinking it was outrageous to conveniently want to cohabitate again. Just because she was in trouble, my husband felt the same. "Apologies won't fix what you did, Mom. Have you forgotten what you did? That was because I was brainwashed by Mandy. I was out of my mind back then. It's all Mandy's fault, I'm the victim." As my mother-in-law tried to switch allegiance to us, my sister-in-law exploded in anger. "What? Blaming everything on me? Mom, you said you hated Stacy too." "Shut up. The only one I hate is you. Are you going to abandon your own daughter? I have nowhere to live and no money. That's your fault for cheating. It has nothing to do with me. Just use your pension to support me. I have to pay compensation. I don't care about the compensation. I don't remember giving birth to a woman who gets pregnant by an affair. Get out of here now." With that, my sister-in-law ran out of the house. Left behind, my mother-in-law spoke to us kindly. "Patrick, Stacy, I'm truly sorry about that time. I'll help with the baby. So rest assured." "When are you coming back?" My husband coldly replied to my mother-in-law's gentle smile. "We have no intention of dealing with you anymore. I won't forget being told to give up on our child. But that was. No matter what you say now, it's useless. We're cutting ties with you and my sister." "Cutting ties? So you won't let me see my grandchild?" "Of course not. I won't let someone who said to abort our child meet them. Please, forgive me. It's too late for anything you say." Ignoring my mother-in-law's cries like a child, my husband and I returned home. He had said everything I wanted to say, and I felt completely relieved. Later, my sister-in-law, having nowhere to go, wandered around before deciding she could only rely on my mother-in-law. She apologized and started living with her again. However, as my sister-in-law had been a housewife for years and couldn't find a job, living expenses fell on my mother-in-law's pension and savings. A few months after my sister-in-law returned, my mother-in-law's savings were depleted due to the compensation payments. Desperate, my mother-in-law called my husband repeatedly. "Hello, Patrick? Please, send money. I can't live without it. Support? We're practically strangers now. I don't care about someone else's life. Don't contact us anymore, we'll be busy with the baby soon. Don't say that, let's live together again. I'm blocking you now. Please." My husband coldly cut off contact with my mother-in-law. From then on, there was no more contact from her. Rumor has it, pressured by my mother-in-law to get a job, my sister-in-law decided to become a nightclub worker. She then got involved with a married man and was again demanded compensation. It seems my sister-in-law, who had a bad drinking and men habit, continued her infidelity. She frequently caused trouble, and my mother-in-law was driven to mental illness and had to seek medical treatment. Despite this, the two continued to live under the same roof, constantly arguing. As for me, I safely gave birth to a healthy girl, and our family of 3 started a happy life. My parents were delighted with the birth of their granddaughter, and my mother has been a great help with childcare. My husband says he will never tell his mother our address or let her meet our daughter. It's only natural after what we went through with her and my sister-in-law. I want to cherish our happy life for my husband, who protected me from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. We plan to build a warm home and live happily ever after as a family of 3. While the two chatted amiably, I quietly observed them. Then, turning to face me, my mother scowled. "Oh, you're still here? I'm handing over the company to adorable Mia. I've always hated you, you know. Really. Such an ugly one you are. I haven't forgotten how you shamelessly followed your father. You're fired. Pack your stuff and get out now. I am Judy Baker. Currently, I enjoy living alone. I used to live at home until a certain event made me leave. It sounds nice to say it was a mutual decision, but in reality, I was kicked out. Reflecting on my life of over 30 years, I've overcome various challenges. Children expect love from their mother, regardless. I kept believing that if I continued to try hard, one day she would praise me. However, now I've come to terms that I'll never receive such things from her. My parents divorced when I was in middle school. The cause was my mother's infidelity. She was pregnant with a child not fathered by my dad. Probably their feelings had already cooled off. Dad didn't ask for alimony, perhaps it was his final act of mercy. Once the affair came to light and the other man disappeared, my mother had to raise my sister alone. Dad probably thought the unborn child shouldn't be blamed. After the divorce, I lived with him. 6 months after the divorce, Dad fell ill and passed away. Then, I had to live with my mother again, which meant a real trial. She never forgave me for choosing Dad. Honestly, I never wanted to return to her after her betrayal. However, as a 13-year-old, I had no other choice but to be with her. She ran a cosmetics company but was too busy to care for my sister, so I had to do it. She'd leave for work as soon as I got home and wouldn't return until late. Whenever we met, she'd repeat, "You're alive because of me. Take care of your sister." Living in such an environment, I felt compelled to earn her approval, and eventually, I became like a robot for her. Despite being a robot, I understood her favoritism towards my sister. Mia has such a cute face. Maybe she'll be the face of my company someday. On the other hand, Judy, you have such a plain face. And you're well built. I look like my mother. People say we're spitting images. My sister undoubtedly resembles the man my mother had an affair with. Even as a baby, she had distinct double eyelids and well-formed features. My mother adores her face, even though the man ran away. While my mother doted on my sister, she was very strict with me. If it's not a public school, I won't pay any money. Your grades must be all A. In my 3rd year of middle school, she insisted on this. Though vain, she invested in tutoring, which was a blessing in disguise. Regardless of the reason, it allowed me to focus on my studies in the tutoring center. I met her expectations and got into the high school she wanted. The same went for university. Only state universities. Private ones are a waste of money. I had guessed what she would say since she insisted on public during my high school entrance exams. So, from the first year of high school, I aimed for a state university and succeeded in one attempt. But then, complaints came after I got in. We live in New York, but the university I got into was in Los Angeles. She didn't like that. Who's going to take care of your sister? She raged. Eventually, her wrath forced me to give up Los Angeles, and I took a gap year, really an intense year. Keeping up academically while caring for my sister was a real struggle. A year later, I entered a university in New York and commuted from home. By then, my path was already set. After graduating, I was supposed to join her company. At the time, I felt no dissatisfaction. I was happy to be recognized by her. I thought she finally needed me, not just my sister. Then, to be even more useful to her, I brought along 2 talented classmates when I joined her company. We were researchers. Initially, the job was fun thanks to friendly colleagues, but her demands knew no bounds, and the challenges kept piling up. I regret involving my friends in such a draining emotional endeavor. And these friends were the ones who helped me see the light during a summer vacation in our 5th year. Working and vacationing together, how much more together can we get? We were enjoying a brief vacation at a resort. Well, that just shows how well we get along. Then one of my friends received a call. She laughed openly while chatting. Sorry, it was my mom. You get along well, huh? You think so? It's normal, huh? She asked me to buy some famous local lotion. Oh. Isn't that what we saw in town today? Right. But it was sold out, wasn't it? Yeah. But maybe the store has more stock if we ask. No need to go that far. It's okay, I'll just tell Mom it was sold out. What? No. You were asked to get it, right? Yes. Then we absolutely have to find it. My friend stared at me intently as I insisted. You know, Judy, a mother is family. Yes, that's true. She's not a customer. That's right. If something she asked for isn't available, just saying it wasn't there is enough because she's family. I found myself at a loss for words. Not because I agreed with my friend, but because I was worried that her mother would be furious if she couldn't get the lotion. After the trip, she asked me to come over to her house, and what I saw there was a family dynamic I had never witnessed before. Mom, sorry, the lotion you wanted was sold out. Oh, is that so? It must be really popular then. You really have an eye for good things, Mom. Here we go, the Foresight Declaration. Here, this is a gift for you. Oh. Sweets? Thank you, let's eat some right away. I'll make some coffee. Thanks. Please do. As my friend went to the kitchen, her mother smiled warmly at me. How is she doing at work? She's very talented and doing well in a crucial role. Oh, that's good. She really does work hard when it matters. Talking about her friend seemed to make her very happy. About the lotion. I'm sorry we couldn't get it. Nonsense. That's okay. There will be other chances. We'll try again when it's less popular. If it had been my mother, she would have screamed until I got it. If it had been my mother, she would never let it go. To think there are such generous mothers out there. My mother is a demon. After that, my friends invited me over to their homes several times, and I was finally able to fully awaken from my mother's brainwashing. They never spoke ill of my mother, but they must have had their reasons. They were desperate to rescue me. I'm grateful to have such good friends. Time passed, and when my sister graduated from university, it was time for me to part ways with my mother. That day, I was called into the CEO's office, where my sister also appeared. You can quit the company now. As soon as I entered the CEO's office, my mother blurted out. I didn't know how to react. What are you standing there dumbfounded for? I said you could quit. What? Sister is fired. Yes, that's right. Because she's no longer needed. Why? Why? Because you have graduated from university, huh? Mia, you are talented, with a cute face. You are perfect for the presidency. Yay! I'll do it. Oh, but there's a condition. Say anything you want. What will happen to you, Mom, if I become president? I'm thinking of becoming the chairman. I'll be there to advise you. Then I won't do it. I don't want to be dictated. If you give all the authority to Mia, then I'll consider it. Mia, you really do take after me. My mother seemed very pleased. All right, I'll leave everything to reliable Mia. But if you ever have any trouble, I'll be there to support you. Just let me know. Okay. While Mia and my mother chatted amicably, I quietly observed them. Then, turning to face me, my mother scowled. Oh, you're still here? I'm handing over the company to adorable Mia. I've always hated you, you know. Really? Such an ugly one you are. I haven't forgotten how you shamelessly followed your father. You're now fired. Pack your stuff and get out now. Although I'm free from her brainwashing, facing such harsh words is still painful. Mom. Call me Ms. Baker, not Mom. Mom. Really, you're such an inflexible child. I could never forgive you for betraying Dad, but I'm grateful for the upbringing. Yet, I was just a convenient tool for you. Don't talk with that face. I'm sick of your face. Such an ugly child. I clenched my lips tightly. I refuse to lose. I won't shed a tear. You're right. Mom, you hated this face so much, so you've changed your own face. Are you satisfied with that face? You are completely different now, and it's unrecognizable. No matter how much you change your face, Mom, it's still ugly. That's not true. Nowadays, as long as you have the money, you can change your face as much as you want. But still, it's the same. The face you show me has never changed from a long time ago. A hideous, demon-like face. You're so annoying. Just get out already. You're no longer needed. Really terrible, both your face and your personality. Mom, are you done yet? I'm getting bored of this. Oh, right, sorry. There's a lot I need to teach you, Mia. Hurry up already. All right, here. Judy, you just get out. I got it. Thank you for everything until now. I had worked diligently at my mother's company, but without any appreciation, I was abruptly fired. And at the same time as my dismissal, I was thrown out of the house, leading to my current situation. 3 months since the firing, I feel at peace living without my mother. However, there are still things I need to do. 3 months have passed, and I'm ready. This will finally free me from my mother. That day, I went to the company from which I was fired. Judy, sorry. It took quite some time. Entering the CEO's office, my sister Mia wore a wry smile. Hee hee, I've had a nice 3-month break, so it's all fine. Really? Then, I'm counting on you this afternoon as we have discussed. During the afternoon's emergency meeting, it was announced that I would be listed as a director. However, there was only one person surprised by this, the person who had been my mother's secretary. She now works under my sister, the new president. She rushed out of the meeting room in a panic when the announcement was made. So, everyone. As I mentioned before, I'm grateful that my talented sister has come back, so please continue to support us. Talented, really, even though this is a company. What a sweet gesture by such a cute sister. Mia had been planning this for a long time to save me. Yes, to take the company from our mother and run it together as sisters. And she noticed how the employees were being pushed around by our mother's arrogance. It's unbelievable that a daughter who just graduated became the new president and the other daughter was unjustly fired after having been working in research. Understanding this, Mia personally spoke to each employee and asked for their cooperation, promising to bring me back. Those who helped included my friends from research. The employees who understood warmly welcomed my new role as a director. Sandra stormed out, didn't she? She's probably calling that woman right now. Hilarious. Returning to the CEO's office, Mia seemed thoroughly pleased with herself. I hope Sandra quits the company too. Honestly, she's like her clone. I can't stand her. Thanks, Mia. Good job. Likewise, looking forward to working together. Yeah, thank you, as always. Huh? Even when I was being fired, you subtly stepped in between that woman and me. You did the same at home too. Thank you, Mia. Huh? I don't remember that. When we were immersed in her kindness, suddenly, the door to the CEO's office burst open. Hey. Mia. What's the meaning of this? Sandra is quite a capable secretary, always quick to make contact. What's wrong? Why? Why is this person a director? That's because she's talented and respected, obviously. Look, I'm just a newbie. Running a company alone is impossible. That's why I was supposed to become the chairman. No, we don't need that. Mia. I worked so hard for you, and I really tried my best for you. Are you going to repay my kindness with betrayal? I hate you. I really hate you. My sister, who had been smiling, suddenly showed her anger. The one who really looked after me was Judy. You don't know, huh? I've been bullied all along. They said I was the child born from an affair without a father. When I was being bullied, Judy was the one who shielded me. Even though I changed her life, she always stayed by my side. She took care of me as her cute sister. What did you ever do for such a kind Judy? Have you ever apologized even once for your mistakes? Is a pretty face all that matters? Aren't you foolish? You should have cherished your kind-hearted daughter who stayed by your side despite the horrible things you did to her. You're not needed in our lives. Get out of here right now. Mia's words greatly stirred my emotions. I might not be able to hold back tears. Our mother stood dumbfounded in front of us, her gaze fixed on me. Did you instigate this? That's right, isn't it? She is beyond saving. I didn't do anything like that. You're taking everything from me, that man. Mia, the company, everything. Such a hateful child. You've always been a paragon of justice, just like that man. He wouldn't forgive even one mistake I made. How narrow-minded. That's why he died young. Absolutely. It must be. You're mistaken if you think you can get by on justice alone in this world. I don't think so. I believe that justice will prevail. Mom. I hate you too. We're really family, we have the same way of thinking. I held back my tears as I uttered these final words. Sandra supported the dazed mother as they left the CEO's office. That was the last time I saw them. Despite my mother's claim that justice alone doesn't work, 3 years later, the company is still performing well. Unexpectedly, since the new management took over, the employee turnover rate has significantly dropped. This is indeed a cause for celebration. Since then, Mia and I have had no contact with our mother. We live together and manage the company. Although Mia is 13 years younger, she listens attentively to the staff and works diligently every day. Our lives are still long ahead of us. Together with my sister, I want to continue protecting our company. My name is Rachel. I'm 42 and work at a trading company. I have a precious fiancé now, and ever since I was young. My late father told me to study Spanish because it would become essential. I attended a Spanish language school and watched foreign dramas at home to become familiar with the language. In middle and high school, I was always the top student in Spanish. When I was in high school, my father passed away, leaving my mother, my younger sister Kelly, and me in a financially tight situation. I almost gave up on going to university, but my mother encouraged me, saying, "Rachel, your Spanish skills are top-notch, so you should work at a big company where you can use them as a weapon. I'll figure out the tuition, so make sure you go to college." Thanks to her support, I was able to pass the difficult Ivy League of Foreign Studies and now work at a major trading company. I always thought I should never forget the kindness my parents showed me. However, after my father passed away, my mother overly doted on Kelly, who is 10 years younger than me. When I got accepted to university, she was a little happy, but she didn't show much interest when I got a job. And she didn't seem to appreciate that it was in trading. More importantly, when I graduated from university, Kelly was still a 12-year-old elementary school student. My mother kept buying her things and praising her, enamored by Kelly's natural charm. I never received anything for my birthday, but she kept buying things for Kelly. This made me feel a strange jealousy at times. Whenever I tried to be affectionate with my mother, she would say, "Rachel, you are Kelly's big sister, so you need to be more responsible. You're supposed to be a role model for her," putting pressure on me. As soon as I started university, I began living alone. I was motivated by the favor of being sent to university and the pressure of being the eldest daughter. I wanted to live independently and contribute even a little to my mother and sister's living expenses. So I worked part-time during college, saved up. I deposited $300 from my salary into my mother's bank account every month, and $500 when I received bonuses. In my first year, I managed to put in a total of $4,000, even though I was living very frugally. However, my mother and sister never thanked me. They acted as if it was only natural for the eldest daughter to contribute that much. As I received raises over the years, I tried to gradually increase the amount I sent home. I rarely called home, and only occasionally received a little contact from my mother. I felt a growing distance between us. Even when I returned home occasionally, I didn't stay long. Time passed, and Kelly graduated from high school. Then, suddenly, my mother called me. "This time, Kelly is going to college, and I need a little more help from you." "I'm already sending money every month, aren't I?" "Well, yes. But that alone isn't enough. You went to an Ivy League of Foreign Studies. But Kelly is going to a private women's college. It's going to cost more. How much more should I add? Let's see. You're putting in $500 a month now, so I'd like 3 times that." 3 times? as in $1,500? That's impossible. Do you know how much I make? Oh, no, I mean, could you double it? $1,000? That's still tough. How about $800? That might be possible. Thank you for helping. I wanted to help my struggling mother. So I immediately deposited the money into the bank after payday. I owe a debt of gratitude for being allowed to go to college. If it helps them live better, then it's a small price to pay. However, about $10,000 a year was quite tough for me. The amount I could save became minimal, so I started doing freelance work at home. From my first job to now, about 20 years later, I've been sending money home. I don't want to talk about the total amount. As time went by, I turned 42. My mother called me again. I had a bad feeling. Next time, Kelly is getting married. Oh, that's great. I've been dating someone for the past 2 years. Well, never mind about you. Kelly is 32, right? So, we need money for her wedding costs. My mother cut me off. She wasn't interested in my life. Kelly always comes first. So, for the wedding and the honeymoon, could you help us out financially? Mom? I've been sending money home all this time, haven't I? I even increased the amount when Kelly entered a private university. Shouldn't that have added up to a significant amount by now? University. Oh, yes, that happened. I can't even save much anymore. I'm 42 now. Can't you manage somehow over there? It's really too much for me. Please, I just need a solid amount of money right now. How much do you need? Maybe $10,000? That's impossible. Oh, no, not that. $5,000 would be fine. You say $5,000 so easily, but besides the monthly support, you need that much for a wedding? Is Kelly there? Let me talk to her on the phone. Then, my mother yelled at me. You don't understand anything. I won't ask you for anything anymore. There's no need to let Kelly talk. Do you know? Recently, she's been sending us $2,000. We've been living on that. You should be grateful to your sister. My mother hung up abruptly. I didn't understand what she meant by all this. It's fine to arrange money for a happy occasion. But why did she start with asking for $10,000, then change it to $5,000? When I said it was difficult, and then refused to let Kelly talk, claiming she's been sending $2,000? If that amount of money was available, they should have been able to manage just fine. And then to tell me to be grateful to my sister? It all seemed too incoherent. I had been sending money home for 20 years, fluctuating in amount, but consistently supporting my mother ever since Kelly went to college. Initially, she asked for $1,500 a month, which we settled at $800. When I said it was too much. This time, it dropped from $10,000 to $5,000 abruptly. Finding it all too strange, I contacted my fiancé, who suggested that I might be being deceived. It was a matter related to money, so a suggestion was made. 2 months later, various truths came to light. I learned the facts about my mother and sister and trembled with anger. Then I made 2 resolutions and decided to head to my parents' house unexpectedly. While on the train home, my phone rang with a call from my mother as soon as I reached the station near our home. I decided to answer. Rachel, you haven't sent any money for 3 months now. What's this about? I thought maybe it wasn't needed anymore, so I stopped. I need you to act responsibly. Send the 3 months' worth right now. What about Kelly? Kelly, she's about to have a wedding planning meeting. Oh, the wedding, huh? What kind of person is her husband? He's an heir to a major trading company. So, you see, she's been getting a proper allowance recently, right? $2,000 a month. Then she's set for the future, and all the more reason my support isn't needed. I'm a bit busy right now, so I'll hang up. We'll talk later. Wait, Rachel. I hung up unilaterally. My mother tried calling several times after that, but I ignored her. When I arrived in front of the family home, my mother and sister came out dressed casually. I followed them discreetly and, though I knew it, they entered a casino near the station. After about 2 hours, they came out looking pale and sighed together. I approached them from behind. Mom, Kelly. Did you enjoy planning the wedding? What? Rachel? Rachel. They were both very surprised to see me suddenly. What are you talking about? Wedding planning? Just. Kelly, what are you saying? We chose a wonderful venue together, didn't we? What? Mom, what are you talking about? I'm not getting married. Kelly, you know what's going on. Choosing the venue is important. Their stories were so inconsistent, it was full of holes. I continued. Wow, so wedding planning meetings these days are done in such casual sweatpants? Is Kelly's fiancé also dressed like that? That's because I'm not getting married. That would be impossible, right? Since there's no fiancé. Mom was saying he's the heir to a major trading firm. Mom, what are you talking about? Well. Recently, I heard Kelly has been sending $2,000 a month to you, Mom. That's impressive. How does she manage such a large amount? It's definitely impossible for me. If I had that kind of money, I'd spend it on something else. Right? I would do the same. It seemed my mother and sister hadn't coordinated their stories well. This was a trap my mother had set for me all by herself. Kelly? About the wedding planning, no, the casino planning, was it fun? Playing slots is fun, but it's been terrible recently. I just lost big time again. Right. As Mom says, choosing the venue is important, right? For slots. Absolutely. Picking the right parlor is crucial. It's no good in the middle of the day. You have to line up first thing in the morning. Ahahaha. As I continued to talk to my sister, more and more discrepancies emerged from my mother. She seemed to be scrambling for excuses, but she couldn't come up with anything coherent. All she could do was give a forced smile. So, Kelly, which private university did you go to? I'm not as smart as you, so I went straight to work after high school. But that didn't last long. I've been sending more money because Mom said you. We're going to a private women's college, Women's University. A girl with my grades couldn't possibly attend such a fancy women's college. That's right. It's good you're still so natural. What's going on, Mom? What could be going on? My mother had gambled away all the money I sent. Gambling, naturally, involves wins and losses. There may be times when she won, but mostly, they were losses. Casino, in particular, is designed so that about 10% of people win. That means 90% lose. My mother and sister, having turned into gambling addicts, had lost their ability to make rational decisions, and were nearly at the point of mental breakdown. Mom, here, this is for you. A souvenir. What is it? This envelope? Is it a bundle of money? That's so generous. What are you talking about? It's a record of your actions for the past 3 months. Record of actions? My mother and sister intensely examined the contents of the envelope. It was filled with photos showing just how much they had been indulging in casino over the last 3 months. My fiancé's suggestion was to hire a private detective. They frequented the casino parlors almost daily, winning a little only to lose a lot. They had even started borrowing from payday loan services. Mom, if you and Kelly were planning to scam money from me, you should have coordinated your story better. By now, Kelly has told me almost everything, and it was all too sloppy. I was grateful for being sent to the Ivy League of Foreign Studies, knowing full well that it was all paid for with the inheritance Dad left us. I felt indebted to both you and Dad, which is why I kept sending money, never imagining it was being used this way. You've deceived me for 20 years. Rachel. I'm sorry. I'll stop playing slots, I can't win anymore. Please, forgive me. Me too. You're all I have, big sister. Slot is fun, but I'll quit. Why don't you two get serious jobs? So, if we get serious jobs, will you start sending money again? What? I was astonished by their response even now. You'll send us money, right? Otherwise, we can't get out of this cycle of debt. If you say you won't send money, I'll come to your house to take it. Surely our kind big sister will help us. We're family, after all. That's impossible. What? Pedro, come here. I called over my fiancé, who had been waiting nearby. Hello. Who is this? This is Carlos, his nickname is Los. We met at the company. And we just got married recently. I was going to introduce him to you, Mom and Kelly, but well, it turned out like this. I think this is enough. Los is very clear about yes and no, and he says he can't be family with people who are dishonest about money, so at the same time as introducing him, we've come to cut ties with you. How can you decide such a thing on your own? Los, please tell them in English. With a smile, my fiancé Carlos explained to my mother and sister. Ending ties with money is ending ties with us. This is common in the world. The end. My mother and sister listened with their mouths agape. What is he saying? If you don't understand, look it up in a dictionary. Bye then. Wait, Rachel. Rachel. Carlos and I caught a taxi and left the scene. For me, it was a final tour of the local sites. Carlos was delighted. After thoroughly enjoying our sightseeing, we took the train back. My estranged mother and sister ended up selling the house. My father left to pay off debts. But the property value was too low to sustain a decent living. They moved into a shabby apartment and tried to get by with part-time jobs. But their gambling habits didn't fade, accelerating their cycle of debt. It was an incurable disease. My husband Carlos, an executive at the trading company I work for, had finished his assignment in America and was finally taking me back to his native Spain. I had always dreamed of living abroad, though I converse with my husband using a mix of English and Spanish. When meeting people in Spain, it's purely in Spanish. The Spanish I learned is different in pronunciation from the Queen's Spanish spoken in Spain, akin to the difference between standard and countryside. Carlos had often pointed this out before we married, but he now says it has improved greatly. Language is indeed deep. Without the monthly remittances, I was able to save. I still work at the company while dealing with American clients through. Fortunately, my husband detests gambling. Money earned through gambling vanishes as quickly as it comes, he says. Money earned through hard work is clean money, which anyone would use carefully. Carlos and I share similar values about money, like turtles. We save steadily and avoid wasteful spending. In today's uncertain world, you never know when you might need a substantial amount of money. For my happiness and for my family, I plan to treasure clean money even more.